Thank you. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, May 12th, 2014. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to please join us in a moment of silence. Marge Edson, aged 82, recently passed away. Marge delivered Meals on Wheels and was a crossing guard for many years. Marge will be deeply missed by her family and friends. Thank you. We have quite a few local things coming up, and we're not going to be meeting for a while, so I'd kind of like to touch upon some of those. I'd like to try to make the Selectmen's meeting a little bit more of this type of forum so that people around town, people say that they get bored at our meetings, so I want to give them some interesting things to attend to, besides falling asleep at our meetings. So I've actually handed out some upcoming events to the members if they want to read them. I've got a couple of things. At the last meeting, we were notified about Wednesday, May 21st, 7 p.m. at the Senior Center, informational forum about the Common Core for schools. So if you're interested in attending that, that's 7 p.m. on the 21st at the Senior Center. The annual Abington High School Portfolio Art Exhibit, which is kind of neat to see. That's until May 23rd at the Abington Public Library. There will be a reception this Thursday open to the public for that. I want to remind everyone that summer is just around the corner. The Abington Park and Recreation is proud to announce that registration is now open online for all programs for the upcoming 2014 season, and hard copies of their program guide are available at the Library, Town Hall, and Highway Department. If you have any questions, 781-982-2125. And lastly, what I have is I want to remind everyone that May 26th is Memorial Day. We have quite a few services around town. It starts with a speech at the Arch on Monday, May 26th at 8:45. And then I think the Selectmen and other dignitaries visit all the cemeteries to lay flags at the fallen soldiers. And the parade, which starts at, they say in ECC, but that's actually Beaverbrook now, 9:30 a.m. the parade, and it makes a stop at the War Monument for Memorial Services at the in front of the American Legion, and there we will be giving a very special presentation in honor of Sergeant Dan Vasilian, a war memorial dedication. So that's a very special event, and the parade will go to the cemetery. So that's all I have. Do any other members have anything else, current events or anything they'd like to discuss?
Mike has one.
Saturday, May 17th at 8:30, the Children's Fun Run at the Abington Police Station, 215 Central Street. You must be 18 years old or 8 years old or younger to enter the Children's Run, so that leaves us out. You can enter your child. You can enter your child and pick up a number the morning of the race. Awards will be given to each child that finishes the fun run, and medals will be awarded for the 5K in many age divisions. For more information, you can visit online www.abingtonpolice.org. And that's usually a very good event. Encourage the citizens to attend if they could.
Maureen?
Yep, I have one as well. Thanks, Ken. On Thursday evening, May 22nd, starting at 6 o'clock at the 6 o'clock p.m. at the Senior Center, there's going to be an open public information forum with regard to the Abington School Building Committee. Basically what they're going to do is they're going to present an overview and answer questions about the new schools that are being proposed. And what they'd like to do is just encourage everyone those who are in support of it, those who are on the fence, anyone who has any questions about that, please consider attending this open forum. Again, it's Thursday evening, May 22nd, 6 p.m. at the Abington Senior Center. The floor will be open for any questions you might have. Representatives from the building committee, the town's architectural firm, AI3, and the town's project manager, they'll all be in attendance to answer any questions that you have. Anything from can you tell us about the building sites, about the building itself, the cost versus benefit of school renovation versus a new school, state construction funding, grant, and all that stuff. So again, something to attend on the 22nd on Thursday night.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Tom?
And Ken, I just want to let residents know that the community garden plots are now available. The community garden at Griffin's Dairy has been plowed. Any resident wanting one, please go to abingtonsage.com and read and fill out the waiver and drop it off at Town Hall. Sage will be giving out plot numbers shortly. And I don't know, Dory, whether the Abington Sage, can they go to the abingtonmass.com website too to get there?
Yes, you can. You can actually go
Okay.
to that Town of Abington website as well, and the information is on
Okay.
that as well.
So for people who are into gardening, this summer,
Yeah.
it's a nice way to do it in a community fashion, so.
Okay, thank you. Everyone had something. Andrew, do you have anything?
I have nothing, nothing at all. I gave all mine to these guys.
I know you were busy. It was actually
Is
Mr.
that how that
It
happened?
was Mr. Burbine's birthday last week, so we'll let this one
Oh.
slide.
We're not going to ask.
Next, I'd like to bump up some people, because we have a 6:35 joint meeting with the Board of Health. Chief Nuttall, would you like to speak now?
Sure.
Okay. Podium's all yours.
Yeah, it really is,
Thank you. First of all, congratulations, Secretary Foyle, Jensen. Careful what you wish for. First of all, my agenda tonight, I have some good news, and I'd like to share the good news, obviously. We just found out Friday, we were confirmed, Abington Fire Department was successfully awarded another FEMA Assistance to Firefighter grant. This is for $79,000. This is going to replace all of the existing fire hose that we own. A lot of this hose goes back to the early 1960s, as well as a lot of the firefighting nozzles, some of the appliances that we have to get the water from the fire hydrants to the truck so we can use it. It is a grant that was co-written by Captain Jack Glynn, as well as firefighter Justin Silva, who's not here tonight, Captain is. And I want to thank them for their efforts on that. This is not great flashy material that gets everybody's attention, but this is certainly equipment that we absolutely need, and we have just saved Abington about $79,000 from requests I would have had to make otherwise. If we include the other grants that we have been successful in the last 2 years, that includes $350,000 grant that completely replaced our radio infrastructure, $50,000 that replaced our outdated air bottles for our air packs. And if you also include the Bridgewater engine that I got, that is now a frontline piece of apparatus, that's roughly $200,000. Right now it's priceless because it's rolling as we speak. A couple other auxiliary vehicles that we're using that cost us nothing, as well as the changes that we made early on in the ambulance billing fee structure, as well as the ambulance collection structure. Not all income that we're bringing from the ambulance, only the extra that from those changes. In just over 2 years, we have brought in over $1 million from the Abington Fire Department to help the town of Abington, which I'm very proud of, and we're trying to offset our costs to do business. So that's the good news I wanted to start with.
Well, you should be proud of that. Thank you.
I am very proud of that, and it's a team effort. It's certainly not just me. It's a lot of members from the department. It's a lot of members up here at Town Hall, the FinCom, the town manager downstairs, everybody. So it's a team effort from all around. So thank you. The second part, the main reason I'm here, and please keep those good, that good news in mind, because I wish I was not here for the second part, but you have to hear this, the residents have to hear this. Abington needs a new ladder truck, and we need a new ladder truck immediately. The current ladder truck is 26 years old. We were hoping to get more life out of it. We actually we invested money into it in the last 2 years to get more life out of it. It is on my capital plan to replace it in the next couple of years. Again, it's 26 years old. It was found last week or 2 weeks ago. It has a major structural crack in the main frame of the chassis. It is not repairable. It is directly under the aerial ladder itself, the very large ladder in the top. Because of that, we are not able to raise the aerial again, ever. In fact, the outriggers have been welded in place to prevent them from seeping down because of the loss of hydraulic fluid. This was going to be repaired because of a large hydraulic leak. We've had numerous leaks with this. We were repairing it. Leaks can be repaired. And as part of the repair, before we put any money into that, we began to do a structural test of the aerial itself, just to make sure there's no surprises. We don't want to put money into this truck and find out that the ladder's no good. The ladder is good, the chassis is not. We have the ladder truck certified annually. It was last done in the fall. That crack was not there. This occurred over the winter. This was rust that would have been inside a hidden channel in the main frame of the truck, and it finally broke through. To be honest with you, to try to repair this, it would never be certified again, which means I could never certify to have the ladder truck safe, either for the firefighters to climb it, or, and I don't want to give the residents a false sense of security that the truck works. We also had to replace the main waterway. That is it's a telescopic water pipe, if you will, that sprays water at the end of it. That was damaged. I know we were going to find more hydraulic issues. It's a 26-year-old truck. The average lifetime for a ladder truck is 20 years old. We've already got 6 extra years out of it. I was hoping to get a few more before we replaced it. We don't have that option. As a result of that, the effect that we have now, this is pretty much how it affects us now. The aerial will never be used again. It is physically impossible. It would destroy the truck. I would never put anybody on the end of that to risk either them or a victim for a fight. We simply cannot do that. The fire pump on that truck is now inoperable. Ladder 1 is a great truck. I really wish I was not here. I really wish I did not have this problem to replace the truck, because it is a awesome fire truck. It also has a built-in fire pump. Most ladder trucks do not. It's called a quint because of that. It's one extra part. It's almost 2 trucks in one. It had one of the best pumps in the department. It has a large 1,500 gallon per minute pump I cannot use now because of the weight. We had to drain the water tank. I had to remove all of the fire hose to save weight on the chassis. I cannot use that pump anymore. That places an added burden on my 4 other engines, which have issues in themselves. I'm currently working on doing some serious repairs on Abington Engine 3, which is our newest truck. It is a Greenwood fire apparatus as we speak, having some major leaks in the pump repaired. It is then going to Allison Transmission to have a transmission issue repaired, and then it is going to Cummins Diesel to have a major oil leak repaired before it comes back to Abington. We had a fire 3 weeks ago on Plymouth Street. That was the pumping engine. That was the main attack engine at the fire. I had 2 hoses off that truck, one on each floor, with firefighters on each floor, and we had an emergency warning light on that engine to immediately shut the motor off. That is not a good place to be. We were able to transfer those hoses to a Rockland engine that happened to be there, and we were able to get through that incident. So we're repairing that. In the past, we have used the pump on ladder 1 as a reserve. We could use that. We've lost that ability now. So now it's affecting that. When I said earlier, the old engine that we got from Bridgewater that replaced the yellow fire truck we used to have, that is now frontline. And it's working. They're certified, but thank God we got that. We're dealing with it, and we will deal with it, but it's not just a ladder truck it's affected our pumping apparatus. Another result of this is, right now we're using Abington's ladder truck only for ground ladders, the tools, and the generator. The ladder truck also has the main electrical generator, which supports our lighting at the scene of a fire, both on the outside as well as inside a building. It has all the cord rails and the portable lighting that go with that. We're very carefully monitoring that crack, and we're driving this around just to get some ground ladders and tools at the scene. That could end as soon as tomorrow if this crack extends. I'm trying it as long as I can. We are beyond borrowed time with this truck. The burden is now placed, as well as a financial burden is placed on our surrounding communities. The 3 towns of Holbrook, Rockland, and Whitman have agreed to start a ladder truck automatically when we call for it for a reported building fire. That was used Saturday. We had a building fire on Chapel Street. Whitman's ladder was at the roof. I had no choice. We had it affects how we stage our apparatus to leave room for a ladder truck coming in later. We did a great job, and we will continue to do so. But we have placed our burden now on those surrounding towns, not only with utilizing the trucks that their taxpayers paid for, but also it's an overtime cost on them, because when their firefighters come to assist us, they're backfilling their stations with overtime. We do the same thing for them. And we would also send our ladder truck or engine, assuming they're working, to their towns and if they had an issue. But it's temporary. And We're going to be using their overtime more because we're calling their ladder truck for reported building fires. If we get there and the captains know, we have orders, if it's obvious an aerial ladder will not be used at that scene, we'll return them immediately. And then we'll continue to use the equipment on our ladder truck if need be. We did that the other night. So this is not just affecting Abington, this is affecting our surrounding towns, as well as now we are down one more ladder to provide coverage for the area. Brockton is down a ladder themselves. I think the Brockton Fire Chief was just as upset, if not more, that our ladder truck is inoperable because we have been covering Brockton a lot. We've lost another truck in the area. To answer the question, yes, we do need a ladder truck. There are many times when we get these serious thunderstorms that come through, and we get lightning strikes in all of the surrounding communities. We all get building fires at the same time. Hurricanes, these storms, the wind storms, these 100-year storms we're getting every year now, the blizzards, we're all on our own because those communities at that point are using their trucks. Certainly if it's free, they would send it here, but events like that, all throughout the year, we're on our own. I would also recommend, and this is not going to be popular, but I have to say this, I'm doing my job. I would recommend no new construction projects over 18 feet in height until we get an aerial truck. 18 feet comes from the maximum working height afforded by a 24-foot ground ladder. All of our engines carry a maximum of 24 feet in ground ladders. The ladder truck, as it is now, we do have longer ladders, but one person drives that. The maximum ladder a single firefighter can raise is 24 feet. 18 feet is the maximum use you can get out of a 24-foot ladder. Anything beyond that, as we stand right now, I cannot get to a roof of any building in this town. It's all mutual aid. We can get to the lower windows, but beyond third floor and above, we simply can't do it. Again, this was a surprise to us. We did not expect this, quite frankly. I expected the aerial to have issues with it, to be honest with you. I expected us to find internal rust in the aerial ladder itself. That was fine. They were able to check that with a number of different sensors to check if there's internal rust. I didn't expect the frame to have this. So we need a new aerial truck for Abington. Cost estimate, $1.2 million. We need a tower truck for Abington, and I'll explain the reason why. Difference between a ladder truck and a tower truck has a working basket on the end of it. If you can envision like a utility type truck, it has a basket on the end of it. You can put 1 to 2 firefighters on the end of it. You can get a lot more work done, a lot safer. The main reason Abington needs a tower truck, and a lot of the area towns don't, is because of the incredibly large number of multifamily buildings we have built in this town over the last 15 years. We have, and I did some figures on here, there's no less than 134 multi-story, multi-family buildings. 70 of those, more than half, are only 15 years old. When I talk about these buildings, to give you an example, I'm talking about developments such as the Woodlands, the Gables, Thayer Street, Forsyth Drive, Stewart Drive up the street, 71 Shore Ave, 100 Lincoln Boulevard, Patterson Street, 560 Bedford Street. They're all over the place. Each one of these 134 buildings averages 12 apartment or condominiums in each one. There is a lot of people living in these buildings. If we get a fire in the attics of these buildings, I need a tower truck to maneuver throughout that building to stop that fire and put it out and prevent it from going to a building adjacent to it. We've allowed these to be built throughout town. It's great. They're good neighbors. They are not fully sprinkled, even the new ones. Attics are not sprinkled on all of them. Very few of them are. You get a fire up there, either from lightning or just fire running in the building. If it gets in that attic, you lose that building, you lose a 12-family unit. We were very fortunate. There's a building behind me up the street. Last July, we had a serious fire that occurred. It started to go right up into the attic. That building's there today because of Abington's ladder. We got there, immediately cut it off, we were able to get it done. We've had several lives saved because of the Abington ladder, and I'm talking the aerial, I'm not talking the ground ladders, I'm talking the actual ladder, the main one. We absolutely do use that. Again, the estimated cost is $1.2 million. If you're curious what average or what area ladder trucks cost, I have a quick breakdown of that if you want to hear it. just for your edification. I'll start with our ladder truck. Our current ladder truck, former ladder truck, is a 1988 Spartan 110-foot. That's how long the aerial is. That was $435,000 in 1986, I believe, is when they funded it. That was not a popular vote then. It will not be a popular vote now, but it's imperative. The Brockton, they have two ladders. Ladder 2 is a 2006. It was $750,000. That was purchased by an AFG grant. Their second ladder, they're trying to replace. They're getting cost estimates of $950. They have been unsuccessful with that grant. We will not get a grant for a ladder truck. We just will not. I'm not being defeatist. It's a fact. We don't have the population. We don't have the need. Brockton's ladders are cheaper because they are a city department and they have a crew of 3 minimum that operate that truck. We don't have that. We have 1. Another reason I need more things that can be done by fewer people. Unless you want to give me more people, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. That's how their prices are down a little bit. Again, this is 2006. That's 8 years ago. Whitman, they have a 2006 Pierce. They were $795,000. Rockland is a 1999, $575,000. Holbrook is a 1996, 75-foot. That was $425,000. Holbrook has a very small ladder because of the needs that they have in their community. They have the whole grove, which is the center of their town. A large vehicle will not fit. They also don't have multifamily dwellings like we do. Norwell is a 2002 for $750,000. Randolph is currently asking $1.5 for a tower truck. Westfield, we have, the only relationship we have with Westfield is they have a brand-new 2014 95-foot, which was 1.2. And it's not that we'd be getting that specific truck, but it's very close for the needs that we would have. It's a very accurate number. They did a 7-year lease purchase. They're paying $177,000 a year for 7 years. I have no idea where we're going to go with that. I've been working with the town manager to see what options we possibly could have should the town decide to replace this truck. I would respectfully ask the board to place an article in the June 9th town meeting warrant to see if the town will vote to authorize a sum of up to $1,200,000 for the lease purchase of a new aerial ladder truck for the fire department. I do not have a specific number because I have not had time to spec this out. Normally, this is not how you purchase a truck. We work forward this. We know that in the next coming couple of years, this is approaching on the capital request and it would be funded and we would have had our homework done. We don't have that luxury with this. So that's why I don't have an exact dollar figure. And certainly if I can spend less than 1.2, I would. I'm not looking to max this out. I'm not looking for a massive truck. I'm looking for a very reliable truck. I want a new truck. And the reason for this is, because I did look at some used equipment, most of them are being sold used for a reason. Usually they've been in accidents, they've been hit. They're too big for their jurisdictions that they're in. The reason they find out they're too big for their jurisdictions is because they're hitting things. We don't want that. We don't want to have somebody else's problem that it's only going to give us 5 years, and now we have another major failure or damage to the chassis. I really wish I wasn't here for a couple of reasons. To be honest with you, I have a full plate. This is my job, but the last thing we need is another major project with the fire department. I was hoping to push this off for a number of years. I'm sure you all were as well. I have to give you a disclosure. This is going to be some other challenges that this truck is going to, assuming we're able to get a truck, that this is going to give us. This is unlikely it's going to fit at Station 1, which is where our ladder truck is now. Even if we get it custom built, the doors at Station 1 and the overall height, it's not even the door, it's the height of the roof, is so low, I can't find anything that could fit our needs that are going to fit that. I'm not saying we can't, but it's already become a challenge looking for the height of this. I can put it at Station 2. We do have the room. That changes how we operate. Right now I have the frontline ambulance at Station 2 with the 2 firefighter paramedics that are there. And if they're in quarters, they can just simply take that ladder truck, which would have a pump on it. I have to have a quint to operate this way. We'll respond that as an engine and a ladder at the same time, assuming the ambulance is in quarters. The ambulance is at the hospital, Now I have to rely on off-duty help to go get that truck. That is not a good option either. I may not have that choice in the short term. To be honest with you, the town needs to make the correct long-term decision on this truck. I don't want to get a small truck that only fits this building because it fits the building, because Station 1 is a problem anyway, and this has been coming up. When they widen Route 18, which is coming shortly, I'm not going to be able to pull the ladder truck out in my ramp because we don't have the room for that. I might have to go to Station 2 anyway. Ultimately, we need a new central fire station. That's not what I'm here for tonight. We need a new central fire station, and I need 4 more firefighters. That would solve all of this. I don't expect either one of these to happen tonight, and I know it won't. But if I'm asking for $1.2 million, I have to tell you what else we need at some point. But the immediate need right now, for the safety of the residents of the town of Abington, unfortunately, we need a new aerial ladder truck. And the cost estimates that I have received across the board are $1.2 million. That's just what they're going for. Any questions?
If you put the article to town meeting, buy or lease, what would the article read? In the past, we've, and I'd like to know the difference in money, dollars, because obviously somebody's making money if you lease it, or it's probably costing the town money, but would you want to buy it or lease it like we've done before?
What we've done, Rick, I'm going to defer to you in a moment, but for the ambulance that we just purchased, and again, that is not being purchased by taxpayers' dollars, that is being purchased by ambulance receipts. We're getting a new ambulance, different funding source. That is a 5-year lease purchase. We will own that at the end.
Right.
Rick, I'm not sure if you have anything to add on this, or?
Yeah, piece of apparatus like this, I've had conversations with the treasurer collector who is seeking confirmation from his financial advisor as to how long we can borrow for a piece of the apparatus of this size and scope. His initial opinion is that that he believes we could bond for up to 20 years for a vehicle of this magnitude. Just because another town chose to do it as a 7-year lease purchase, it doesn't mean that's the only mechanism to do it. So obviously, there's a couple issues. Number one is how much, do we feel we can logistically put into our operating budget from an annual debt service for the next 20 years, if 20 years is the option, or do we have to seek to exclude that debt to keep the rest of the trains running? The problem is there really isn't much of an option. In one way or another, the town has to move forward with replacing the apparatus. So while we get some answers to some of those questions, we still have an annual town meeting coming up. So the board will have to make some decision, at least to whether or not we want to have that on the warrant for the annual town meeting. But to the extent that we're able to, that could be bonded for 20 years, it's something that may be manageable within the long term, within the levy limit over a course of time. Keep in mind, Chief, how long would you suggest it would take to replace the vehicle if you had the authorization on June 9th?
This could take a year if they have to build the vehicle. I will certainly work very hard to reduce that time frame. I would love to get a truck by winter at the latest. I don't know if that's physically possible. That clock begins the moment the town decides and approves on funding. We're not even there yet.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm trying to get this on this warrant.
Probably to the town manager, would you recommend a debt exclusion on that, or what would you?
Well, I would recommend a debt exclusion, but I think in the short term, I think we have to at least get an article on the warrant to authorize the debt. The question as to whether, you can always, at a later date, determine whether or not you want to put before the public whether or not to exclude that debt. That's not something you have to do at the same time. Ideally, you would, but to make a bond authorization for this contingent upon a debt exclusion at this point, you'd have to schedule a special election, or you'd have to wait election in the fall. You could do that. The difference is the chief can't move right along, can't stop moving on June 9th or 10th or whatever with replacing the vehicle, which is going to take, like you said, significant time. If it's contingent upon a debt exclusion. Like I said, it doesn't mean you can't at a future time make a decision. You want to put that question to the voters once we have a much better idea as to what it's going to cost. It's not the ideal way to approach it, but under the circumstances, the options aren't what you would have hoped.
Okay. And then just an observation, you said it a crack in the frame.
Mhm.
You also indicated it doesn't carry water anymore, and you can't put the ladder up.
Correct.
I would almost think that any vehicle that has a crack in the frame is not drivable, so, I mean,
I don't
what you're
disagree with you.
indicating to me is you're just for the lighting and stuff like that. I just don't think the safety of the firefighters or the general public, a vehicle that big with a cracked frame, if something did happen, could be
The crack in the
catastrophic.
frame, it is mainly, it's to support the aerial and the operation of the aerial. If you actually begin to get into geometry with this, but if you can imagine, the base of the ladder is like the base of a triangle, and the aerial going up is the side of a triangle going up. All of that pressure and all of that force is directly right there. The amount of force that frame is holding up at that point is immense. That's the main reason that's not going up. We're monitoring it very closely on that crack to make sure it doesn't affect just driving it as a truck. Because I do agree with you. We did reduce a significant portion of the weight. It only rolls on reported building fires. We've stopped sending that on second multiple medical calls or motor vehicle accident, any separate type of non-fire calls. We stopped running that 2 years ago to try to extend the life of this truck. So, and we continue to do that. We're trying to go easy with it, and we're monitoring that crack pretty much daily or weekly with that. However, I agree with you, and that's why I said earlier, this could end tomorrow. This could become to the point where we tried it, it's simply not working. Now we have nothing. We have zero capabilities beyond 24 feet, and it's all coming mutual aid. It's a very dangerous place for this community to be in.
There's, and I'm not recommending this, but on the short haul, you indicated it's costing the surrounding towns over time, and this vehicle isn't worth it. Is it worth investigating, like, towns that might be more, keep the equipment more upgraded than we do, when there are some that they might have a vehicle that we've gotten vehicles before that didn't require a whole ton of maintenance to get it up and running or stuff like that we could just use in the short term to, obviously timing is everything, getting the vehicles there and the right equipment and the manpower is absolutely critical. I understand that, but coming from Whitman and Rockland and surround might not, that's what I'm thinking. If you had something that you might be able to work out on a temporary basis.
It's got to fit in the station.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And
obviously.
I'm serious, because we did look at that.
Okay.
I could have had a Norwood ladder almost free. It's not a Quint. It does not fit at Station 1. I can't use it at Station 2. I'll have nobody to respond with, because I need water to respond on the initial fire. Usually, a lot of times you can save lives just as quickly with putting the fire out and sheltering in place than you can with a ladder. It depends, but if that truck was a Quint, yeah, I would have got that, actually.
Well, I mean,
In the run.
over time, I mean, I don't know how many people build fire trucks, probably not a lot, but they are
There's a
constantly.
number. Yep, there's-
What do they put out, one a month or something like that?
There's some stock options as well, but none of that can begin until I get the financial authorization from the town.
No, I'm just curious as to whether or not we can maybe accommodate the safety concern in the short term, basically, so.
We are doing our best on that. I mean, obviously, safety is number
I
one,
know
not
that.
only for at the fire scene, but driving as well as not only for our firefighters,
It's so much-
everybody else on the road. But
Yeah, I think there's probably people out there thinking the same
Understood.
rationale, so.
Yes, I would think if you did allow for an addition of an article to bond for, to purchase, presumably through a bond authorization, a vehicle, the board and collectively, we can make a decision a little bit later as to whether or not it needs to be excluded. But that's if you've gotten to the point in your minds where you believe we need an aerial vehicle. And I presume people aren't going to argue about that fact. That would allow the chief to move forward while we explored more in depth whether or not collectively people believe we need to seek to exclude this at the next election. Keeping in mind, obviously, it's a risk. The public could authorize to bond within the levy limit and not exclude it later on, but I'm not too sure what option exists if you agree that we need an aerial vehicle. And
So, is it appropriate tonight to open the warrant?
well, that's not specifically on the agenda, but the issue is on the agenda, and I can't imagine you couldn't take action under this item right now to at least open up the warrant for the inclusion of one article.
Well, my only concern is, and you said it, Chief, back when we purchased this 26 years ago, it was a very contentious town meeting. And if we don't have all our ducks in a row as to what we're purchasing,
Yeah.
how much is it gonna cost, what are we gonna do as far as financing, I think the thing could get shut down pretty quickly.
One difference from 1986, I was in high school then, I did not go to that meeting. But I've been studying up on the town records from that time, as well as the previous Chief Haphouse notes on that. The difference between that vote and tonight, or this year, is we had a 1961 Seagrave ladder truck that still worked. We don't have that option now.
And I understand the need, but I just think.
Understood.
Yeah, when is our special town meeting? October?
We don't have,
November,
traditionally, you
October.
have one in the fall, and
Which is,
you don't have.
we have a late town meeting this year,
Yes.
which is June.
Oh.
The fall town meeting would only be
Right.
another 3 or 4 months away.
Right. And that's a
just-
legitimate possibility.
And I know it needs to be done, and I know, if we wait 3 or 4 months, it's gonna be 3 or 4 months down the road before we get it, but it's gonna take a year to build anyways. I just think we need to make sure we have everything done.
Could take up to a year. By all means, I would, if there is a pre-built stock truck that fits our needs, we would get it if we had the funding for that. The big difference on this is the height. The height is really dictating everything, height and the length of the truck.
Well, that's the other issue, Chief. I mean, you talk about a need for central fire station, all that's gonna go into this too, I think. It's all kind of plays together. And to
I mean,
just
the
throw
immediate need now
something.
is the truck,
I know,
obviously.
I know.
So, when I mentioned the fire station, I just don't want to get something small that's going to fit here to get us through temporarily.
Right.
And then down the road, we really wish we got the truck that we need.
No,
We have no idea what's going in Southfield. If anybody can tell me what's going in Southfield, please tell me, because over the next 20 years, we have no idea what the risk is going to be up there. We have to have the appropriate truck.
Any other members? Tom?
Chief, just a couple of notes that I made. Just explain to me again the difference between an aerial truck and the tower.
Sure. An aerial truck is what we have. It's a ladder truck.
Yeah.
It's a straight ladder, okay? A tower truck is pretty much that truck. At the end of that ladder is a basket, if you will, or a bucket, which is a platform, we call it, which 2 firefighters can go in. There's numerous benefits for that. Mainly, it's you get a lot more work done out of the firefighters at a fire scene, because they're able to do more. First of all, you have 2 firefighters side by side, whether you're pulling a building apart to get to the fire, whether you're pulling somebody in the basket to save them, whether you're helping firefighters in and out of a window. You have 2 people standing up, not leaning on a rung, tethered in, on air, and you can get more work done. Second thing is, at the end of that basket is 1 or 2 very large water guns, and that gun can move all over the building. Right now, the ladder truck sits there, and the water sprays out the end, and you can move it a little bit back and forth like that. A tower truck maneuvers all around the building like this. I've seen Brockton's tower truck come in and put a lot of our fires out because they have the appropriate vehicle. They can put that bucket in the sidewalk, literally, and shoot up at the ceilings into the upper floors of the building. You can move right up to the building and start pulling the fascia boards in a burning building apart, and then boring into it with water. You can go above it and shoot down. You can go all over the place. It's a very mobile piece of apparatus. It does not add a significant amount onto the overall vehicle. For the benefit you're getting with that type of a vehicle, it's worth the extra money on it, especially because of the multifamily buildings we have. We have very large buildings with unsprinkled attic that are to code. Code allows for that. But if you get a fire in that, you lose not only that one main structure, now you begin to have the very real risk of a conflagration. Look at Haverhill last week. That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. Haverhill, the news story where the mother jumped out with her baby. It was all over the news last night. If you saw the photographs of that fire behind it, there are many buildings in this town, we have that same exact structure. I'm not going to tell you which ones, but that's what we have, and we've built a lot of them. And they're great, as long as they're not burning.
So the
When they're
basket's
burning,
on
we have to get to it.
the basket's on the end of the ladder, in effect?
Correct.
Okay. The other, I guess, question I had is, again, we talked about contentious vote back when, and I guess we're all too old, we've been here too long, but as I recall, part of the contention was the 110-foot ladder. Whether it was whisper or not, there was rumors going around town, it was too big, it was the largest one in the state, and it wouldn't
Understood.
fit in the firehouse. I just picked up a note, are you gonna try to restore that ladder and put it on the new equipment, or are we going to go with something that's smaller, 95 feet?
It could actually be a 95, to be honest with you.
Okay.
A lot of them are 95. I'd actually be losing 10 feet. If I can go, right now, our ladder truck is 110 feet. It's not the height, it's the reach. It's the horizontal reach.
I see.
We have used that ladder truck on a single-story building, going directly over the front lawn when there's 2 feet of snow, because it's the only way to get to it. A lot of times, you cannot place a ground ladder or an extension ladder against a chimney if it's a chimney fire, because that extra weight of not only the ladder, but the firefighter climbing that ladder because of the force could split that chimney. You need an independent platform, even on a one-story building. So we've taken that ladder truck right over the front yard before and laddered a building on a one-story building. The tip of New England art is what everybody thinks, we're gonna use it all the way up there. No, we're gonna use it in the first floor of New England art, the third floor of New England art. Hopefully never New England art, actually, but it's the reach, it's the horizontal reach. The engines each carry 1,000 feet of hose. The ladder truck carries 110 feet of aerial ladder. That's it. You gotta get close to the building. We don't have 111 feet, we got 110 feet.
Right.
And that real estate runs out pretty quickly, depending on how close you can get to the building.
And my last question is just kind of when you look at purchasing any vehicle, whether you're a resident or the fire department, new versus used, what kind of a warranty do you get on a new truck? Is it 3, 5, 10 years?
The warranty, and we did a lot of research on this truck, because believe me, we tried to get this repaired under warranty. The average a 25-year warranty on most of the main things. This had a lifetime warranty on, not the frame, but on some portions, but it did not include we tried to get the lifetime warranty on it. That manufacturer's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
It was absorbed by another company. The maximum we would have got out of them is they would have given us a piece of steel manufactured for it, but we still would have had to take the entire truck apart, try to repair it.
Yeah.
Nobody would certify it at that point. You'd have to get an engineer to try to recertify that truck. We know we're going to find more hydraulic issues. We still had about $20,000 worth of the waterway to repair. At some point, how much money are you going to put in a 26-year-old truck? It's just not feasible.
Yeah. That's not really my question. It's on a new truck.
A new truck,
Just like if I went and bought a car, 3-year,
Usually
bumper-to-bumper
25
warranty,
years.
powertrain.
The 1988 vehicle was 25-year warranty. I haven't looked to see what all the different manufacturers have at that point yet. I just haven't really get that deep into it till we find out what we're going to do. But certainly, as part of the speccing out of whatever vehicle we purchase, by whatever manufacturer it's going to be, we're going to get the maximum we could for that.
Thank you.
A question for town manager. Has the treasurer collector, if we were to open this and put this on the warrant, would the treasurer collector have the time, the opportunity to put together what a $1.2 million over whatever 20 years bonding would result for taxpayers?
I would think that should only take a couple days from today, as soon as he can get confirmation on the maximum length of a debt issuance, whether it's excluded or not. That's the key. The key issue is getting confirmation that this apparatus, for how long this apparatus can be bonded for under Mass General laws. So that's something you could have within a few days, not a problem, not an issue.
Obviously, the reason I ask is if we were to put this on there, to Andy's questions, when it got on town floor, that's what people are going to want to know. So if we were to choose to do this, we would have to make sure that we tee them up so that they could speak to these, to these questions.
Well, and it's a big question as to whether or not you would even seek a debt exclusion. $75,000 in annual debt versus, over a 20-year bond versus having to finance this over 10 years, if that's what the law requires. That's a big difference. It's a big difference in terms of the impact on the overall budget of the town, so.
It's imperative that we open up the warrant and at least put something on there, put out something so we can just have a spot for this, and then we can look at these items, start the wording. We have, we were talking later on in the meeting about maybe meeting in the next week or so. Maybe we can work on the details, or the chief can work with the town manager and work on the wording of the article. As far as opening the warrant, we just take a vote to do it. Is that the way it works?
You could simply take a vote to add the article to purchase.
We don't take an initial vote to open the warrant. We can just take a vote.
Right, you can just take a vote to add the article, correct.
board members?
I'll make a motion to add this to the annual town warrant.
And I'll second that, but I also want to acknowledge, I think Mr. Burbine has a very good point in that, and getting your ducks in order, and you speak for yourself about not being old enough to be at that town meeting, because I was there.
I was there too.
But,
And again, I don't mind putting it on the warrant, but if we're not to the point where I'm comfortable that we're ready to go, I'm not going
Yeah,
to
and-
vote
and
to
I-
support it, I just won't.
I agree with that, because, Sandy, we can always take it off, or,
Yeah, right.
you know, work in
Pass over.
conjunction with the
You can always
chief.
pursue it in the fall.
Exactly.
As part of the
But I
regular
think it would be
capital.
But I don't want to rush into something and not have everything done
Yeah.
the right way. That's my
Agree with that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to put the tower truck, an article for the tower truck on the June 9th warrant. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you. I wish I did not have this problem, believe me, both for your end as well as my end, to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for a
Thank
very
you.
thorough, detailed explanation. If it's agreeable to the Board of Health, before we have you guys up, we have a really short license transfer, if that's agreeable to, short, yes, it is short, thank you. 7 PM, or a little early, Stephanie Morgan, transfer of a common victual, thank you, gentlemen, license 800 Brockton Ave. Stephanie, here, would you like to come up to the microphone, please, Stephanie, and, sure.
Oh, yeah, it's up by wall.
Up by Walmart?
You can just briefly explain the business that you're purchasing or renting or whatever it is.
Yeah, purchasing, it's currently a breakfast lunch restaurant under the name of Margot's at 800 Brockton Avenue, and we're purchasing it to continue.
Okay, let me ask, we have a note from the fire chief saying that they've inspected it. Have the other inspections been done? And
The other inspections have been done. I would recommend that you ask for a motion that this license be contingent upon personal property tax being up to date.
Okay. Hour of operation, are they going to remain the same as what's there now? Do you know?
Yes, yeah, we're going to remain the same currently.
It's breakfast or lunch?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Board members have any questions? No?
Have you run a restaurant before? Have you folks?
Stephanie
My
has,
family
yeah,
has. Yes, yeah.
my first go-round.
I'd move to approve.
No second.
We have a motion and a second, move to approve contingent upon,
Taxes being paid up to date. Personal property tax.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Good luck.
See, I promised you folks that would be quick. 6:35, yep, right on the button. We have a joint meeting with, let me get that. Joint meeting with the Board of Health to determine post-closure options in order to evaluate the corrective action alternative analysis for the landfill. The corrective action alternative analysis, that basically means what are we going to do with the landfill? We have a letter in our packet from the town manager, and I'll let him expound upon it, but it's basically what you're here for tonight. And I just want to reiterate, I believe that this vote is the Board of Selectmen's vote, but we're kind of looking for your folks' input in your recommendation. That's all right. And do you have to open up your meeting? Chairman?
I'm going to do it for tonight because we have to do an
Okay.
official thing.
Would you like to open up your meeting?
Yeah, it being 6:52, call the meeting of the Board of Health to order. All members are present. We are here to meet with the Board of Selectmen to discuss the Groveland Street site. I turn it over to the floor of Mr. Coyle.
Thank you. And I will in turn turn it over to Town Manager, Mr. LaFawn.
You will recall a few weeks ago, you met with Stephen Wright, and I know the Board of Health is familiar with Stephen Wright and Kleinfelder, and he has recently submitted the comprehensive site assessment, and in that, it calls for trying to determine what's the post-closure uses for the site may be, until there's some input from the town as to what those options are. He can't interact effectively with DEP and cost out various scenarios for all of our benefit. What we've have in front of you is information from the CSA presentation where he outlines some of those post-closure uses that he has heard in the past and what other communities have done in the past with landfill sites. So what he's looking to do, and the feedback he's seeking from the town, is what is it that the town, Board of Selectmen, Board of Health collectively, ideally believe what those uses may be. He's looking to get, 3 would be ideal, 3 options. The one option that we've discussed in the past, which he still believes may be an option for DEP, is the no-action alternative, where there would be no need for any future capping, but that would effectively eliminate the use of that for any other post-closure uses for some extended period of time that would be determined, but it would also, in theory, alleviate the need for millions of dollar capping project. Other issues that have been mentioned up there, which are listed in the corrective action analysis that was from the PowerPoint presentation, expanded recycling, renewable energy. So ideally, he's looking for 3 options that can be provided to him for submission to DEP for further exploration. So this may take 2 minutes, this may take hours, who knows? I know that it's been discussed here and there over the years among the parties. So that's kind of the framework for the discussion, is so that we can get our engineering firms some post-closure consensus for further exploration with DEP. So I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure how we want to do this. If you folks talked about this at meetings, or are you just looking at it now for the first time? You
As
received
a
this-
group?
You received this information earlier, though, right?
Yes, we did. Thank you, Dory.
All right. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to know what our input is, or would you like to? We didn't take a vote, but we kind of talked about, personally, I feel it's a no-brainer that we ask for the no action first, but that's just.
So all I have to say about no action is what do you then plan on doing with what we have currently going on at the Groveland Street site, which is our recycle reuse facility, and where would that go in the town if it's not there, if we can't use the property for that? Right now, we're operating a very successful, I believe, a very successful program where we're taking in leaves and shrubbery twice a year from curbside based on our trash contract. We also take on Saturday morning from 9 to 2, is it? 9 to 1? We take in from late April through the end of November last year, I think it was. Every weekend we have, except for the weekends in July and August, we allow the citizens of the town to bring their leaves and small brush to the town. We also take in Christmas trees and grinded them up this year up there to save the town even more money than having it removed. We also take in miscellaneous appliances like TVs for a small charge. We take in the LPG tanks for a small charge so that this doesn't get rid of that. So if all of that was to go away from the landfill site, where do you suppose, or would you suppose we're going to do that in the future somewhere else in the town? Does the town have another piece of property for us to use?
No action, I mean, I'm sure we could
Yeah.
find another piece of property, however, I think the no action one, actually, the front area where most of the composting is being done now isn't really part of the landfill, so to speak. The landfill is more towards the back.
All right, I understand.
So I think that you might be able to still continue composting operations in the front portion of the site, but they might require you to pave it and do composting there.
Well, I haven't called the DEP. I've looked on DEP website over the years during the conversations I've had in the back of the gym on several occasions and in this room with presentations, and I thought the no action statement was, in fact, that nothing would happen on the property and that we might have to.
That's not the case, Bob, with what he gave us the other night.
Right.
No
Okay,
action.
all right.
Just as Kenny said.
Right, and in keeping in mind, these have to be explored. It's not as if there's definitive answers.
Correct. So as long as, well, then if the action item is that we could continue on doing what we're doing now, and maybe have to do some tarring or something like that, that's okay. I mean, I'm trying to keep or maintain something in the town that I think is useful to the town. And I wouldn't want to use, so if we're not going to lose that by this no action clause, yeah, it's a no-brainer to save what we were talking about for well over 10 years now, of the millions of dollars it's going to cost to close that landfill.
But it's also important land, too, and you also want to have the ability to possibly put in some type of alternative energy, solar fields,
and that would be a less of a cost for capping. So I wouldn't want to take no action. I would want to also explore the possibility of using that location, possible solar.
Well, I think we can give up to 3 options, so that could be another option. I
That's
think the one that costs the town the least amount of money should be option 1 personally.
Well, I think we have to have the no action. I think he recommended no
Right,
action.
right, right.
Or it should be one of the ones.
But like you said, we don't know what no action means. I mean, we can presume it means we have to remove the composting operation, but that's ultimately a decision DEP would make with us. So, so the issue with the no action is, would we be able to maintain the composting, or if not, where else could we do it in town? Perhaps that could be done effectively, so.
Well,
Okay.
again, my short response is, I'm okay with the fact that if no action means we can maintain it, and if we can't, as long as you're taking into consideration the plausibility of moving it and where we would move it to, again, I have no problem with no action as being your first and primary resolve. Again, I believe energy, the plausibility of using it for energy, I think we talked about it before. I think it's been talked about on more than one occasion at this meeting or other meetings that I've attended. Would always be a proper way to think about utilizing the property if we could economically make it feasible to work. I believe in the early explanation of bringing solar fields, something like that in, I don't know if we have enough square footage on the property to make it work. I think that's the last, that my memory recalls, the last time we looked into it, we were lacking the square footage to make a farm work for us. If there was another energy source that we could look into to utilize the property, I would suggest strongly that we include one of the 3 to be alternative uses for plausible ecology or economy use of some force of energy process, whether it's wind power, solar power, whatever we could make out of it, make it work. Expanded recycling, I'd be crazy not to be somebody to make that statement either, because we're all about the more and more this town can recycle, the more we benefit everybody in the town, including the ability to expand what we're doing up there now, even bringing in more stuff that gets it out of our trash flow.
Like what, Paul?
Well,
Just
a simple one, styrofoam. Another one, appliances. We talked about putting a dumpster up there and getting a contractor to come in and voluntarily drop off a dumpster, and then possibly getting paid for tonnage of appliances. As you're well aware, this town, I believe the Sage Group and other groups in the town, and most recently, we bring in the one-day clearance of all electronic appliances with quartz. Well, if you have ever been down there, it's amazing what comes in on that Saturday for corded equipment. I've seen people come in with trailer loads of stuff that's been in people's backyards forever. It's not like they just show up and bring a vacuum and a TV and a toaster. It's amazing how much stuff comes out of there, including treadmills and every piece of workout equipment we ever thought we were going to energize ourselves with that never really got done. And small pieces of cars have showed up in that site, so there is some money in metals. Metals market fluctuates up and down, but that is something that we could propose to expand to take in. Right now, we are taking TVs of any size based on, we do have a dollar value for that, and it's also that we've put it on our website that you can go directly to the company and bring your TV directly to them. There's also been collections now, I believe, there was one at South Shore, Votech, and there's going to be one next weekend at, this weekend at Rockland Transfer Station, and there's one more after that to bring electronic appliances. It's really important that we don't just chuck this into our trash. Some people just put it in their barrel. As long as they can close the lid, how do we know what's going in the barrel? So if we can get this out that there's some place that the citizens can take their stuff to and not put it in the barrel, that's a benefit to the town. That's less tonnage. So anything we can do to expand recycling for anything at all, not just electronic appliances, but anything at all, would be beneficial for the town to utilize. The other part would be construction debris. Not that I want to get involved in construction debris, because I don't want to get involved in construction debris, but, I don't know what the expanded market is for used wood or something like that, but it would be worth looking into to see what other means are out there. the times are changing. People in this country are looking at things differently, and there is a lot of recycling programs out there that are recycling a lot of different things. I'm not saying to turn this into the biggest, most glamorous landfill recycling plant in the world, but anything else that we can put our heads together to come up with as an option to add to that site, if plausible by the state to utilize it, would be a benefit to the town.
The five best options that were given to us by the Stephen Wright, who's been working on this project for a while, I believe all five options include leaving the front for composting and recycling, and one of them actually sounds like it might be even increasing it a little bit. It's on one of the pages of your document that you received. I think it was the third or fourth page in. Number one was no action. Number two was alternative cover system, standard cover system, import 150,000 cubic yards of impacted soils, which I think that was our alternative that we initially discussed.
Yeah, I know a lot of times that's if DEP absolutely requires a 2014 cover system, how do you fund that? And that's when that type of option becomes a little more desirable. But I think that's early for us to know whether or not we'll have to do that, I think.
Do any other members of the Board of Health want to add anything else about this? Or I know you guys haven't taken any votes or really discussed it at a meeting, but we'd like to hear what your opinions are. I mean, we know, it sounds like pretty much... Terry's. Yeah. From a group, we pretty much heard that you all want to keep the composting and recycling, which I think our group is in favor of, and possibly solar for the back portion.
It's important to know that over the past couple decades, a lot of post-usage of these landfills have been used for renewable energy. So plans are already in place, procedures are in place, best practices are in place, so we would benefit by others' lessons, and I'm sure the DEP would look favorable on something like that.
And that's nothing that we haven't discussed here for the last year or so, actually, even when I was on the Board of Health.
Right.
Mike, you had your hand up?
Oh, yeah.
No, I was just, in the packet, I don't know, this is what I've been using to go as a gauge. It's the next to last
Yeah.
one. Might be a little clearer.
What I got. This isn't what I got at all.
Well, they were-
This is when I was looking at the 57 pages that I read today.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this at
There's,
all.
yeah, there were two pieces. One was,
This is the presentation that they did, but this is in the, I don't know if you guys in the
I think I got
back
two of the
here, it's
same
like the
thing,
second
yeah.
to last page, I think.
No, there was
Yeah.
nothing, Dory sent us a whole package
Yes,
also.
yeah, that's what I read, and that seemed a lot closer to what you seem to be saying,
Yeah.
Mr. Quill, so.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? One of the options here, and I think it's, no one's mentioned it, which I'm not disappointed by, is the possibility of space for either, for development of recreation space, fields, and that's, I know other communities have looked at those types of options, but it would be very important to know whether or not that is something that people find feasible. If it's something we can take completely off the table, that would be, I'm sure, very helpful for the Mr. Wright and all of us.
But if you look at option 5, Rick, it's import lesser quantity of fill, a solar array or athletic field. So I think it's another use for the back, if it's solar fields, if it's athletic
Right.
fields, that sort of thing.
The one of the concerns is that it's possible that DEP would have might have a different closure capping requirement for a renewable energy option rather than a athletic use option. That's why it'd be interesting to know if anybody really has any feeling for that as a possible either recreation place down the road, because, like I said, that will possibly impact, I shouldn't say that for certain, what DEP may require for a capping system. So.
That is true. A capping for a solar array or wind field or hot water would require a different capping component than an athletic field. An athletic field would call for more fill to cover to get the athletic field to be more operable. Lots of these array fields use crushed stone as one of the options for laying down underneath, so you don't have to use as much quote-unquote compost or fill to fill up the field. So you are true with that statement.
That was discussed.
Right, but whether or not anybody feels that's an appropriate location, if it can be taken off the table, that's certainly helpful.
Just, again, I have the options from back in 2007. There were 9 options at that point in time. 4 of them included a playing field, or some sort of a playing field at the site. With 85,000, it's very hard to read because it's small print. 85,000, thank you, cubic yards of fill, which is the same amount of fill as, I think, they're saying would be required for the solar array. So, again, if we're looking at just these 5 options, personally, I'd say number 1 and number 5, and then something in between. And if it comes out that playing field is okay there, and it's something the town wants to look at, fine, or if it comes out that a solar field or a wind field is something, but I don't want to close all that off at this point in time without having a little bit more of a look at it, me personally.
Can I just say something? What bothers me about doing anything in the back, they use the term 80,000 cubic yards of impacted soil. And that, to me, is you know, you're not talking to people. So I think you're really, for us to make a decision on, especially 5, you need to know some money. How much is it going to cost? Because I think you're up in the millions of dollars. And, you know, so the impacted soil is quite frankly, is something that bothers me. You know, personally, I would stay away from doing anything in the back, in my opinion. And we did ask that, you know, the no action, the alternative cover, and what I was most interested in is a composting, recycling, and possible transfer station, which was number 3, which I think we share the same views on how successful the recycling is and stuff, but I go by a lot of towns and they have a transfer station, and I think, if I remember correctly, he said that we'd have to put a couple of retaining walls and stuff like that, but it would be more, a little more construction, but not significantly more. So that's just was my thought process. But again, I think it's nice to talk about the athletic fields and everything going there, but there's 2 things that I would really want to know is, you know, knowing the state, that impacted soil might be impacted okay today, but 20 years from now it's not okay. And then the residents, would you want your kids playing on, you know, what they consider to be impacted field soil? But I'd like to know the cost. It definitely is, you know, something maybe you'd look at, but I don't know that I certainly wouldn't throw, you know, throw the transfer station out. I think it's going to be, the bottom line is I think it's going to be cost prohibitive to do a lot of work in the back of that.
Can I just ask, I don't know, what exactly is a transfer station?
We talked about, I asked the question to the gentleman who was given the presentation about, you know, making it more and paving it and possibly putting a transfer station in. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he said it would probably cost an additional $300,000, but you get a little more acreage and be able to use it appropriate. But
we would use the next 300 feet going back that are pretty much what we use now for storage of our ground-up waste. And we may be required to cover that with something, provide some sort of a drainage system, and then you could install a place where you collect glass, where you collect, you know, if collect metals, collect plastics, collect computer components. It expands the idea of just coming in and taking your leaf bags off the back of your pickup truck or your car and throwing them in there, or the barrels. A transfer station, if you look at towns like Situate and Cohasset and Hingham, those transfer stations have like a little place, exchange place where you can drop off or use lawnmower and turn it around, and someone else picks it up, swap meets. But they have components where you can bring in your newspapers, you separate stuff. But we do that with our compost now. But a transfer station allows you to open it up to other things beyond what we're doing right now. And so that's one thing. I don't know how big of a transfer station I'd like to put up there. I like the fact that I like to keep the recycling going up there at minimum, the leaves and brush and the Christmas trees. And I'd like to do whatever else we can do to help make some money for the town, which I'm talking about the TVs, the gas tanks, and plausibly some scrap metal, just because it's free. If people want to bring it up and drop it in and it gets brought down, and if we're making a 53 cents a ton or $1.16 a ton, it's still money coming in that we wouldn't have got. And it's not a huge impact for the town to do unless DEP says we got to put something down underneath it to collect that. But, you know, we have a couple of trailers up there right now that if we were allowed to scrap metal, I could find a way to get a Sawzall and start taking them apart and scrapping those to make some money. So I like that option. My personal opinion, Mike, as I'm with you on that, I like that option. I always thought that the playing fields was a nice to have, but the cost, not only in ecological, which was that they were talking about being not clear compost, but dirty compost.
It was
And
called
what-
mildly contaminated.
What that mildly
back in
contaminated
2006.
mean, we don't really know. We never
That
got
was in the other
definition of that exactly. We don't know if that's a little oil, a little gas, and a little sand, or if it's construction debris that may have nails and other things.
Asbestos.
And, or is it, under the radiators of cars? I don't know. I'm with you on that one, Mike. I'm not really thrilled with covering land with anything that we can't know what's there and know it's going to be healthy for the ecology and God knows if we put something up there that's slightly contaminated, and we've done all this testing, soil testing, air testing, water testing, well, who's to say what leaches out of that contaminated soil doesn't cause us problems down the road? One of the recommendations in that was to continue on with doing annual tests of all those things, which was air, water, and soil tests, to make sure we're not getting any more leaching or any more extension out like that. So I guess I'd encourage all the other board members to speak here, because they're looking for our opinions to make some decisions.
Yeah, and I would just also want to point out that, this isn't the end of, days here. What comes out of this meeting is what gets explored further and then comes back to the powers that be for further discussion and decision-making later on. So it's really just a matter of narrowing down for further exploration those options. So we're not exploring, 9 different things, or, we're exploring, 3 different things. That's the point.
Before Maureen has a statement, before that, I just want to make a point that this project has been going, we've been talking about this for probably at least 10 years, and I remember that the impacted soil was brought about when they were doing the big dig. We were going to take some of that at no charge, I believe, because they needed a place to get rid of it, and
Yes.
and put it in. So that was a cost-saving measure. It wasn't something.
They would pay us to take
They were going to pay us to
Yeah.
take it. It was
It was
basically just
year-based, too.
yeah,
We had the
just
opportunity to get it.
just dirt. So.
Right, and there may be a lot of other urban fill opportunities besides the big dig, but generally, I think those options are become more, they become more likable when you must cap. And so you're going to have a $3 or $4 million expenditure you can't avoid. Then the opportunity to raise funds and revenue in other ways, like taking fill, becomes a different equation than if you don't have to spend substantial funds, right, to cap a landfill. So that may be something that you end up having a discussion on later on, whether you like it or not. But it doesn't mean it has to be your preference right now.
But again, I'm sorry.
Maureen?
I was going to say, having attended when the gentleman here presented these alternatives, I know from myself, I was not impressed with option number 5 either, bringing in impacted soils to put, a field or something like that on that, because I recall very clearly something that he said, which was basically, we were all kind of pleasantly surprised, if you will, about how good the tests had come out. But he did say something about the more you manipulate that soil in the background, you could almost like open
Stir
up
the
a
pot.
can of worms, if you will. So, can of worms, get it? Yeah. But, so particularly kind of along the lines you said, I would be less inclined to support pursuing 5 as well. Whereas the 1, 2, and 3, even more so. And if you really wanted to go into, the ability to compost number 4 there, I'm really not that inclined to go with either, because you are still talking about impacted soil and manipulating the ground that's there. So.
Andy?
Well, just again, with the impacted soil was to help defray the cost, the overall cost. And to Rick's point, I think we ought to include one of those 2 options, only because if the DEP comes back and says, sorry, no action is not an option, and the alternative cover system, which is the 1971 regulatory, is not an option, then we're going to be stuck with the standard cover system, and we're going to have to pay for the whole thing ourselves. So I think it's kind of covering your base to have at least one of those 2 where we take impacted soils. We decided to do that back in 2009. And I think back then they were estimating it saves about $1,500,000. Not that it's our preferred choice, but I think it's something we ought to just have, just in case we run into this, where they say no to 1, no to 2. You've got to do it the right way. and now we're stuck with the entire bill. So that's why I'm suggesting one of those.
I agree with Mr. Burbine in the regard that if we know we're not putting athletic fields there, and we're looking at solar on that back portion, I would have no problem with bringing in some impacted fill to build the solar upon.
Or even if you do nothing, which was what option 3 was originally, was just to actually bring in 150,000, what was it, Sue? Cubic yards. That was what the original option was. The solar fields and if athletic fields, and, I don't have a preference or if it's even doable, but that would be less. That would be about 85,000 cubic yards. So that's going to cost you more, obviously, because you're not going to get as much for the 85 as you would for the 150 bringing it in. But again, I just think we need to cover our bases with one of those two options.
Terry?
Well, I would like to advocate again for number 5 in that none of these are going to bring any possible income, whereas with a use of a solar field, there's a possibility to defray some of that cost. It's going to cost us something. So with number 5, at least you have the opportunity to defray the cost, and SAGE is working to increase and improve some of our energy opportunities in town, and solar energy is one of them. So there are mechanisms in place that would support number 5 and help defray the cost.
Okay.
Anybody else on the board? You have anything? No?
And I'll open this up to the public if Ms. Brennan would like to say anything. I know you've been involved in it. You ought to talk. Get up to the microphone, please. Yes, absolutely. I'd like to remind Ms. Brennan, what time did the Bruins start tonight?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
6 minutes ago. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Selectmen, Board of Health.
Address, please.
Susan Brennan, 197 Orchard Lane.
Thank you.
As you can tell, my binder goes back to 2006. And that's just one of the binders that I've been keeping. There's a memorandum of understanding which clearly delineates the Selectmen and the Board of Health's responsibilities. The original vote was for number 3, option number 3. So that is still on the table. So if you would like to add to those, that'd be wonderful. I wasn't here for Steve's presentation, but evidently, number 3 is already on the table. So that's a given, option 3.
Standard cover system.
Correct. Does everybody have that? Yeah, okay. So other than that, if you wanted to add the no action, which definitely we've always wanted to do, because after 30 years, a lot of the stuff has remediated itself, fortunately and unfortunately. The DEP has been extremely patient with us. The timeline for where we are today was actually 2 years ago, given the money situation they've worked with us. So, like you said, the Board of Selectmen are basically the carekeepers. Anything having to do with solid waste or transfer would be the Board of Health. So, like you said, 3 options on the table, no action, number 3, and then I highly recommend you pick one more option, just as Mr. Burbine said.
Just to clarify,
Yes.
when I'm talking about option 3, I'm talking about the 2009, 2010.
Correct,
option
and that's
3.
still...
Not the option 3 that you guys have.
What's your option?
Oh, sorry.
Option 3 on,
It's old stuff.
option 3 actually on this new sheet transfers over to option number 4.
Which is import 150,000 cubic yards of impacted soil?
Correct.
Okay.
At approximately 10 to, conservative number was $10 a cubic yard. The best scenario would be $15 a cubic yard.
Receiving?
Receiving, to offset this whole project.
All right.
Speak to Mr. Franny's uneasiness about the remediated soils. The DEP holds, they don't want to get in another situation, removing remediated soil from one area to the next area. It comes with a bill of lading. We have to put a scale in. We have to measure, we have to weigh. So all those trucks will come in with bill of ladings where it came from. DEP is very cognizant of where the projects are happening. So they would highly recommend if we were going to do this 2 years from now, they'd say, oh, we have this project coming online. Can we hook you up with X project? And then they govern that remediated soils. So that was a question, as a concern.
No,
No, I just wanted to, easiness.
I'd go back to, you could talk to Jack Bailey or somebody like that years ago, service stations sold or gave their oil.
Yes.
They had to pay to have it picked up, and the guy that picked it up had the, all the receipts and stuff, and he brought it, and whoever this guy was, he put it in a place it shouldn't have gone, so it was
Like our Sledge Lagoons up
safe.
at
So
the campus.
all the service stations in the area that had, in good faith, given it to them, the state came and presented them a bill. This is what you gotta go. So, when I say I don't have trust in true justice as the state goes, and the other side of bringing in that amount of fill was, to the residents up and down Groveland Street and New Brockton Street, that's a lot of truck traffic. And
lot
the
of truck
final
traffic.
thing, what we're gonna get, out of it is just something, in fairness to the board, members of the Board of Health and stuff, it would be nice if we did have some approximate figures of what we're talking when we're identifying these. And right now, it isn't really there, you know what I mean? We don't know. It's tough to make a decision based on this. I know the former town manager's hopes was to have a solar company come in and pay to have that cap in return for years of, correct me if I'm wrong, so, but years of leasing us, to put the solar panels out there. That was his desire, but I don't think it ever.
Well, just keep in mind, Mike, that until the town knows what DEP would require for a cover system or whatever accommodations, it would be hard for any private company to come in and even tell you what it would cost, what the benefit would be. That's where
I don't
we're at
doubt
right
that.
now, yeah, so.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have a lot of information, so any questions?
If anybody has any questions
Thank
for
you.
Susan, too, just feel free to ask her.
just-
I'm hoping to get a general consensus of your board at the very least, if you can.
And I'll take that vote just in a minute.
Right.
I just want to point out one other thing, is that to access the property, you have to go over a culvert down the back right-hand side of the property. Any idea of having to put tonnage across that culvert is going to require some output of money also. And that's not to say you just put a tube and ground down. If you're putting 25 tons of loads back there, you're going to have to build something decent to get over that water issue. So I'm just saying right now that if you were to walk that property tomorrow and go out, you're not going to be very happy with the condition of that culvert that's in right now when you go over it just to walk over it, or just I've never ridden over it, I've only walked over it, but to get soil back there, I spoke to the previous highway department manager who actually walked the property with me, and he's the one who told me that we would have to shore that up greatly before we could put backhoes full of fill to get back there to cover the land. So it's not just like you're just going to go out there right now and start dumping things and moving it back there. You will have to do some maintenance on that culvert area that goes over from the main property side, the left-hand side, over to the back of the property, which is the majority of the landfill that needs to be capped in the first place. So I just want you to be aware of that there will be some cost there to build some type of, I'm not talking about a bridge, but I'm talking about a temporary structure that would have to be built to support the construction equipment to roll that stuff back there. So, that being said, does anyone else on the Board of Health have anything else to say to the Board of Selectmen before we take a consensus vote? Then I would open the...
Can I just have one, I have one question. Susan, and maybe Andy can answer it too. We've been talking about the numbers that we have on this Visio presentation that you had. And my understanding is, when we're saying 3, we're looking at this sheet saying 3, but you guys are saying 4 on this sheet equals option 3.
That was the original vote from the prior
Original option
Board of
3 is the option 4 on this current sheet.
Okay, so, and that's the one that we already have a written memorandum of understanding?
That was the original vote from the prior Board of Selectmen.
So-
So you either rescind it or you can add to it, but that was the original 150,000 cubic yards.
So I don't know if we can vote for anything different. We can add, maybe
can add
add
to
on,
it.
or if you guys want to.
Change it. I mean, if that's something you wanted to recommend that we change, I certainly...
Yeah, I mean-
We can make that recommendation, but it's your decision, I guess, to make that decision to change that, so.
Right, and I just want to remind people, this is to give feedback to our engineer so that you can make better decisions once these are explored. So I don't want anybody to feel like, you're locked into anything, or, the past is gone in many ways, but we have to articulate some options for further exploration, so.
Right, we don't want our engineers working on 5, 6 different options if we're not even going to ask them to do.
So based on this document, I'm gonna get an opinion from my board on this, just so you understand where we're coming from, okay? So I'm using the handout. Dory, thank you very much for presenting this for us, I appreciate it. This is this handout, from the handout that's on our table tonight. I'd like to get a consensus from the Board of Health to make a consensus vote to the Board of Selectmen as to what we think are the three options that were most viable.
Up to three.
Up to three. I'd like to give you three. I'm not gonna give you two, because you take two and run, so I'm gonna give you three. And I'd like to open that with number one, no action being taken. That being understood, that would be allowed to maintain our current compost recycling in the front of the facility. That's my understanding. Number two would be the, number two on the board, which is the alternative cover system, which is the standard. The front allows for composting, and the back would install a cover system from the 1971 regulatory standards. And
Well, just not to interrupt, but I want to interrupt. Keep in mind that part of what we're trying to do here is have our engineers deal with DEP to find out what cover system they really will require. And that's driven by the post-closure use.
Right.
So I want to make sure we keep our eye on what you'd like to see up there, not...
I'm going to change my verbiage after reading this off. Thank you very much. And then we have the other three options, which is the standard, the import of soil, and then the lesser and the quality use of solar fields, arrays, and athletic fields. So my option, my recommendation would be is that we would take no action, expand recycling, plausible, and the use of extended energy or other optional alternate energy uses of the property. That's my recommendation. I'll take anything else from the board. All members, please.
So what number is that?
Number
one. You're going with number one?
I mentioned this.
Oh, okay.
As Richard just said, we have to understand what the limitations are from the DEP when we pick one of these. So what, I changed the verbiage, as I said I would change the verbiage, to say what our recommendation would be, how they want to address, the board, selectmen want to address these 5 items. I'd like to say to them that we'd like to see either no action, additional recycling, or alternate, expanded recycling, and the plausible use of either energy array or athletic fields as a viable option, is my recommendation.
Sounds reasonable.
And anybody else, and before we go, that I believe Tom has a...
Well, do you want to let them finish, or you...
They can finish, they get the floor.
Okay, so, Linda, what would your options be?
I agree with those.
So, right now, we have 2 votes for no action, expanded recycling, and energy use. Susan?
I kind of agree with you. I was going 1, 4, 5, which is what you said.
Sort of kind of the same thing. We have 3 votes.
Yeah.
Donna?
I would take the option of the athletic fields out of that equation, otherwise I support the rest of it,
So-
what you just said.
Okay. And Terry?
And I would second Donna.
So, just so the Board of Selectmen can hear our words, we have a majority vote for no action. We have a majority vote for expanded recycling, and then we have a majority vote in the stands of 3 to 2 for the viable energy or athletic facility use. And that would be our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
So you're not, so you're not choosing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're just telling us the use?
I'm trying to tell you the use. I'll let you determine what you feel.
Well, we definitely chose 1 and 5, but Donna and I have a caveat that we prefer athletic fields not be involved in 5, but as a committee, we've gone with 1 and 5. And how you want to define our second item as far as expanding recycling is
And if I could finally say that, the overall thing for me is that we keep the compost and recycling in whatever shape or form it may be on the front of the property, and whatever we have to do to make that work and cover the cost of that would be what I would highly push as a recommendation from the Board of Health to the Board of Selectmen. And Donna?
So I think it sort of picks up on number 3 of the composting, recycling, or possible transfer station.
So if you want to use the number 3 would be the form that we're going with, 1, 3, and 5, so.
The difference between 3 and 4 is the cost of capping.
And that changes based on what DEP determines that capping price is going to be.
Tom?
I just, as I listen to this, I find the vote somewhat difficult. I mean, I'm not sure if we're married to these 5 options, because in my mind,
You're not.
1 and 2 go together. 1 goes together, it's the no-cost option, it's no action. 2 is next in line, it's the lower-cost option, which whatever was in place in 71, we'll just do that capping. Again, low cost. So to me, those 2 should be combined into what we asked the consultant to do. So to me, you get into one of these other 3 options, 3, 4, or 5. To me, I think 3, standard cover system, expanding the front part for recycling is a logical extension, and leaving the back part alone. And then if there's another option here, 4 or 5, that you would like us to consider, I guess I'd ask
Well-
what that would cost as far as, the engineering's time to prepare something like that. But to me, 1 and 2 go together. It's not either or. I think it's logical that we should look at those and ask them to pursue both of them, because I sort of feel like, I think you mentioned, Andy, or somebody, that they might not be options, right? No action might not be an option. 2 might not be an option. So to me, 3, 4, or 5 should be the ones that, we should be considering.
As the Board of Health Acting Chairman, I would strictly say that those are recommendations. However, the Board of Selectmen would like to look at that. Beyond that, I'm happy to say good luck with that vote.
I wrote this down a half an hour ago when you folks were talking. No action, in order. No action, keep or expand recycling, solar, wind, and then impact it only if it's not playing fields. That's kind of the sense of what I...
I believe that's the sense of the board,
So,
that's the sense of the board's
We will
vote.
roll with that and then make our recommendation.
Right, and I don't think there doesn't have to be a definitive vote. This is more, again, a consensus, and again, I just want to caution that, we really don't want to define the cover system. I think the post-closure use is what, the engineering firm is going to have to interact with DEP and say, these are the options that the town would like to look at, and if A, if B, if C, what is it that you would require us to do? And then we'll have to come back and say, this is the cover system they will require if you want to do
here's
X,
the
Y, and
cost
Z.
associated with
And then it's the next phase of decision-making. But, to be spinning wheels, for instance, trying to determine whether or not, what it would take to get, an athletic complex up there is something that, if that's not something you're interested in, we don't want to be spending our time designing, engineering, costing that out, trying to get some agreement from DEP on how to pursue that. So there's only so much work that we're willing to pay for from our engineering firm, I suppose is.
Does anybody else on the selectmen have any questions for the Board of Health? If not, thank you folks for coming.
I'm just
Appreciate
going to
it.
close out my meeting if you don't mind.
Sure, go right ahead.
It being 7:35, the Board of Health will close out a joint meeting. I'd like to thank the Town Manager's Office and the Board of Selectmen for keeping us included and up to date with the information, and good luck with your decisions. Thank you very much. Our meeting is closed. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All in favor, closed. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you folks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Welcome, new members. Let's have one final go-around with this, and just, does anyone else have anything to add for selectmen as far as, expand upon what they talked about, or does anybody have any opinions, like pro or con against anything that they recommended?
No action is obviously one alternative.
Yeah.
I think expanding the recycling, if we can do that, that's fine. And,
So what number, I'm still, on this,
Good numbers.
Let's not even go with
Forget
that.
Yeah,
the
we're not
numbers.
going to,
Yeah,
I mean,
we're
if we just want to talk about, like Rick said, just the post-closure use.
Yeah.
Do we want to use it at all? Do we not want to use it at
Right.
all? No action would be not using it at all, just leaving it the way it is, except
Maybe-
for maybe a little, or still doing the recycling, I guess.
Yeah.
he indicated he thought that would be highly unlikely they would accept no action. Period. That's what I go
Before
for.
they said
We don't know.
that wasn't gonna happen at all, now it's an option, so.
Right. No, he did, one point he alluded to the fact, depending on what the test was.
But I think he,
What do you think?
based on the test, though.
Yeah, based on the test.
It looks like an option now.
Right, and again, it may be that we have to, no action is plausible, but only if we find another location for the existing activities, which may not be acceptable to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health, or we may find another location. I just want to, I just don't, we don't have to solve those problems today. We just have to define what's acceptable to people on that location in the future, and let the
So-
engineers do their job.
Okay, so if we can define it by telling them that we want to see, we want to keep things going as they are, no action, but keeping what we're doing currently there, no expansion of the recycling, but doing the composting and recycling that we are there. Then we kind of went down to the other alternative, which is to add the potential of using, post-use to do it for something like solar, not athletic fields. And whatever the other alternative in between is going to be dependent on what's the cost associated with doing it, and what's the risk of manipulating the land that's already there. Can we give them something as vague as that?
And if they'll allow some impacted soils, that would, I mean, for the cost savings, I think that would be preferable.
Yeah, we will give them what the board wants us to forward to our engineers to explore with DEP. It's really that simple.
Give them what they need.
I mean, it's one, they
Do
may...
they want us to, I don't know if you know this, do they want us to vote on these 5 lots?
No,
Or
I
is it
think...
just on the post?
What is it that you would like to see, or the plausible uses at that location in the future? That's the main... It sounds like there's general consensus on that.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm a little nervous about trying to determine, what the cover system's going to be, because I don't think, nobody knows that at this point, so...
Do you folks agree if I say we would like to keep and/or expand recycling up there, and we would like to see possibly solar or wind up there? Does everybody agree with that? No, okay.
No, primarily because you're still going to import a heck of a lot of soil, and if my understanding was, it could look like a mountain. It could be a mountain out there. We have a lot of flat roofs, where all of a sudden we have this big thing for solar energy. And let me tell you, solar energy is very good, and wind is everything like that, but it's not free. The cost per developing a kilowatt of electricity for solar and wind has not come close to what it costs for fossil fuel in maintaining it. But we should look into that. Don't take my word for it. We should look into it. And the government does have a lot of rebate, systems using our money to help us out, I guess. But no, I just can't see that amount of, and he even said there was a culvert up there we're going to have to go. I think I just could never envision bringing in, I guess I got hung up in the word impacted soil, and then he almost indicated the cost was prohibitive of bringing in, would have been prohibitive of bringing in clean soil, and that was going to help us out. And then to the residents up there, bringing about that amount of truck traffic, my vision for that up there, and it's me personally, would be to clean up what's there and make it to expanded, I think you're using the terms, expanded recycling, or so we could put a transfer station or whatever. But that's just me. I'm not...
But doesn't every option, except for number 1, require bringing in fill?
No.
No.
No, 1, 2, and 3 don't.
So a cover system does not fill? What is it?
The cover system would be to cover the existing
With what?
front portion, whatever membrane they deem would use at the time. In 1970, they spec'd out a certain kind of membrane that was probably, wouldn't let the water go through it, and now they're gonna, he's saying
But
if
then
they
you
do it
cover
this...
the membrane with,
Soil.
okay.
But the soil, you could push back what's there, as I understand it, put the membrane down and pull it back over. And then he said, if we were the transfer, I think he used around $250,000, $300,000 to put up some retaining walls, and so that you could, later on, the DEP would say, okay, you could bring in those dumpsters and drop-off things, and again, but that's just me. I mean, whatever the board wants to do. You know the way I am, Kenny, I'm the only one on this board that knows what's going on, so. No, that's fine.
I thought a cover system meant they put some kind of membrane possibly down, but then they also put soil on top of that.
Yes. That's
Right, yes.
That's
But
part
1,
of the
2, and
cover
3
system.
don't talk about
correct.
any kind of importing of
And then
cubic
they-
yardage
We're not,
of soil.
yeah, not the
So
same.
it's just like a little bit of...
It's like a wearing
Get
sort
a
of
couple
surface.
bags of loam and throw it on top.
Right.
There you go.
Miss,
Yes.
would you consider to try to get us there, as maybe accept motions for each of these options and see if there's support?
Well, I just thought the sense would work. I mean,
Yeah.
Because I'm sort of on Mike's wavelength. I'm not really crazy about bringing in any impacted soil up there.
Well, it may very well be that one of your options would be, a expanded a renewable energy option if it didn't require bringing in impacted soil. I mean, I think, tell us what you want us to tell the engineer that you want to see. And if it's not plausible or not cost-effective, they will let us know, and then you can make a decision.
Can we do this? How about this? Do we all agree that we'd like to see what's up there now
Sure.
just continue?
Yep.
Yes,
So 1.
So that's,
check.
Status quo, no action.
And can I just speak, Kenny?
the Board of Health agrees.
Yeah.
If they require us to cover
Well,
the back portion of this, if they require us to, my assumption is, and maybe I'm wrong, that they're going to require us, if we want to do the front, they're going to require us to put some kind of a membrane down and cap it, okay? But they're going to leave the back portion alone. That's what I understood.
That's the no action.
Unless,
That's a no action.
unless they say, okay, now you've got to cap the back, because I thought he was indicating, listen, we're getting nothing out of here. it's encroaching on wetlands. I know he
Right.
indicated that strongly. You don't want to be up messing around on a wetland, so maybe just leave the back alone. That's what I'm saying, leave the back alone and just,
You leave it back alone, there's no action.
That's-
Other than that,
Right.
something's gonna get done to the back of it. 2, 3, 4, or 5 requires
All of
something
them
being
have a
done to the back
capping
of the,
component on the back.
that's where the landfill is, it's in the back of the property.
So we get a
Cap,
baseline of 1.
Everything from
Yeah.
cap,
Okay.
based
No,
on 71 regulation.
but it says back none.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'd like to
Proposed
just
use.
lobby
You're
to put
still
on
not
the table, I think
Okay.
if no action's not an option, we should have the engineers look at number 2, alternative cover system.
I agree.
I personally would want a cost for that, because I think that's a lower cost.
Well,
Well, doesn't that, wouldn't that roll into, like you said?
That's what I was saying, but
Yeah.
again,
So,
the
but
way
that-
this is
But,
worded,
well, that's why I asked, if we approach it this way, if we leave it the way it is, can we leave it the way it is and use it the way we're using it?
Right.
Either we're not gonna have to do anything.
Right,
Or maybe
define
we
your
can use the
use.
1971 cover, but that's not for us to decide.
Right,
now.
define your possible uses, and then there will be, then the engineers will interact and define what kind of cover
so
system, what
no
those.
action, leaving it the way it is would be 1 and/or 2, or 1 or 2, I guess.
That-
That's fine.
that-
I think
So
we're
I
in
just
agreement.
want to understand, so it would, 1 or 2 would mean no action would be
Leave it
status
the way it
quo,
is.
or it might also be, no action could be having to remove the existing operations and relocating those to another, is that what you mean by?
Well, again, I'm looking at 2, Rick, and it says front, compost and recycling stay.
They all say that.
Okay,
Okay, but 3 is potentially giving the Board of Health or whoever the option of expanding it. So to me, 1 and 2 are very, if not similar, other than the DEP comes back and says, you gotta do something with it, you gotta put a cover on it.
yeah, right, and,
Cover on the back.
Mr. Chairman, can I just tell you the sense that I got just from listening, that I think is what you want for the use? What I heard was that you wanted no action, keep the compost site the way it is, or expand upon it, and have a potential post-use, possibly solar, no fields, and no impacted soils. That's what I got from,
Except for the last part.
I'm not on board with a no impact.
okay, all right, so the no.
Across the board.
But
Okay.
whatever DEP will allow,
well, yeah,
That looks-
right,
cost saving.
right.
Yeah, this might be an exercise in futility. They might just come
We
back
don't
and
know,
say, this
yeah.
is what you're gonna do. I mean,
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we are doing what the engineer has asked us to do.
Right.
And try to identify some post-closure, opportunities that you find acceptable.
You against ball fields up there, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's better options for both.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay if it.
That's, that's actually very good to know. I mean, it's, because that would be an exercise, an engineering exercise that would take significant time and energy to pursue, to cost out and et cetera with DEP.
the cost would absolutely dictate.
Yeah, you would have to get involved with impacted soils in order, we know that. That would require a lot of grading, et cetera, so.
All right,
So how about number 3? Are we in favor of that, which is basically a standard cover system and given the option to expand
What's,
composting, recycling, and possible transfer station? Because I am.
That's what I thought was expanded
Yeah.
recycling,
Yeah.
personally.
But option 3, and I look at it, option 3 and option 4 are basically the same, except you're bringing in some impacted soils to defray the cost. Right?
That's not, frankly, that's not what I heard when Steve was here. I heard that the impact to the back would be minimal. There wouldn't be any impacted soils out there. What would happen is in the front, they would put some sort of a retaining system in place to expand the area that could be used for recycling. That's what I heard him say.
right, and these ideas have not been fleshed out in any, in any great degree by Stephen Wright, and so we want to, so before we go about that business, if you're, again, if you're looking at potential expansion of the recycling transfer station opportunities up there, they may not require, or they may require a particular cover system, so I don't want to go to DEP and say, we're going to do a standard cover system. This is what we'd like to see. You tell us what we need to do if we do, X, Y, and Z. I'm not hearing a third option, though, that the board seems to be able to have a consensus on at this time. There's status quo, expansion of recycling, but I'm not hearing a consensus for, additional, for exploring renewable energy opportunities. Maybe I missed that, but the Board of Health was in favor of
Personally,
that.
I'd like to try to look into, see what the option is for
I
solar.
mean, it may not be feasible, but it may be, I don't know.
I would go along with solar if they had an idea that the solar company was going to come in and they were going to utilize our land and produce the electricity. They were going to buy it and they were going to maintain it. It seems to me that we have a lot of potential in the town, given a lot of the roofs that I happen to be on, Master Soil and places like that, they set them up with the flat roofs with a lot of, it isn't that we could be lacking, maybe it should be something we should explore more readily, but my fear is that it's going to, again, it's tough to make the decision without seeing what the cost analysis is, and
Right.
and I don't know.
That's going to come.
Yeah, this is more of a feasibility study, Mike, to
Just
find out what the
basically to
costs
see how
are.
you feel about certain things being up there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see a windmill, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think it's going to be feasible for them.
I don't think we have enough wind.
No, we don't.
yeah, those
Just in this
those
Yeah.
tend to make some noise that neighbors
So-
tend not to like.
So, interested in looking at solar up there?
Yes, yes.
Fine.
Tom?
Close the door on it.
It's going to impact, it's going to require impacted soil, correct?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the board, I mean, I think there might be better options.
Don't be
in town.
wishy-washy. Say
No,
yes
I'm
or
not,
no.
but I think the new school, as I understand it, is being built to be equipped with solar. Down the road.
Down the road, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one
And
building.
I think
yeah.
that's a better option than basically bringing in
Can't have
impacted
both.
soil. And from that study that was done before, it, again, the popular belief at the time, it wasn't enough area there to run solar.
I think,
And now, I guess I heard maybe, but you'd have to bring in a lot of impacted soil
Well, let's
in
find out.
areas that were not before.
find out if
Well,
it's
my only concern there, Kenny, is these things aren't cheap, right? And I don't know how much additional effort or whatever cost it would be
to what?
to do that, to look at
Rock-
solar.
Rockland
or
just did it.
these. So,
Well, he's asked us for 3 options, so.
Yeah, so,
the budget.
I mean, you can give them two. But if that's all you feel comfortable with, don't,
Somebody make a motion to do something.
Well, we're just taking a consensus, is
Yeah.
that the case? Or do
yeah,
you want
that's,
more?
yeah,
No action is number one.
expanded recycling, or,
That's not really an option, is it? It's just one of it, it's just
Which-
something we want.
Well,
It's a you, yeah. Compost recycling, possible transfer station.
Yeah, along with the
I
standard
would-
cover.
kind of 2 and 3 together, it's just, give us the cost of, what, can we get the 1971, or do we have to go with a full,
Well,
cap?
again,
That's
right.
what I would want to know with regard to 2 and 3.
right.
You're not going to know that until he
And-
starts to explore that with
Right.
DEP, and he's not going to start to explore it until we give him some options. on what
Some
we want.
post-closure options, correct, right.
Everybody's scared of this
I know, it's,
impacted soils.
I am.
yeah,
It's-
yeah.
If we're not putting
DEP
ball
is-
fields up there, I'm not concerned about it.
But afford what? Afford 5, that's the only way we could do 5.
well,
No action is.
No action is.
like a couple,
Yeah.
$300,000.
No action.
That's why it's number one.
You don't want to use
I'm-
this site again, let's work with the remediated soils. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
If not, it'll be a $6 million project if you
Right.
clean soil and, you know.
We want to make sure we have to bring it in.
Well, I would say this, if renewable energy is something that's an option, but it's determined that you need impacted soil and the amount of it is beyond your comfort level, you'll find that out at the time, but you don't know that right now. That's the problem, you don't know that right now.
You don't want something like open stove, right?
Because these haven't been well vetted by the engineering firm, because, we're not spending money on that until we narrow down the options, so, I'll leave it at that. I've been through one of these types of projects,
That's
so,
fine.
135.
So, but
135.
elaborate. So what was the experience with it? Because then they put in Carver down on the Road 44, or I don't know if that was a Carver project.
well, that's the renewable energy piece. I'm talking about a landfill, covering a landfill and financing it through importation of impacted soils, which, it's a unique situation in that there was no question that we were under a consent order to cap the landfill. There were fines and fees accrued and, in excess of $2 million already just for not having complied. So you were looking at a $4 million plus ticket. and the town did engage in a contract to do that, to bring in impacted soils that funded the capping of the landfill. And I would say that it was a successful project. One of the reasons it was successful is because the town really demanded a much more, how do I want to say it? We required a level of testing well beyond the DEP required. We had required a testing system that was on the site. There were certain protocols that were put in place by our engineering firm to have so there was much more in-depth analysis of the soil, and the town had the ability to reject any particular loads. But keep in mind, that level of oversight also has a significant cost implication. So, but again, that was purely a situation where you weren't looking at post-closure uses. You were looking at, you have to cap this landfill, period. And there was never any inclination that there was any viable post-closure uses.
So
Here,
in
you
your
might
case-
have the option of post-closure uses that did not exist in that particular situation.
So in your case, it was basically you're just importing impacted soil to basically fund the closure.
Exactly. It was really that simple.
And out of the 4 million, how much did the impacted soil contribute to that, would you say?
Oh, that funded the entire project. It did, yes. Right.
Could I recommend, 1, no action,
Yeah.
2, alternative because it increased the composting in the front, and then 5, what with no athletic fields? That's the way kind of the sense of the Board of Health meeting, I think.
Yeah, I would go along with that.
I would go with that.
Okay.
But primarily, if it were, I mean, I don't know what they're going to say. They could come back and say, you have to do this, okay? And I hope they don't look at it and say, oh, that's what the town's willing to accept. Let's go with 5.
But they
Because I'm
also say-
adamantly opposed to
Also, 2
impact.
says alternative cover system. They may come back and say, yeah, you can use mixed soil, but you can also use some of the impacted soil also. You mix it up or something, I don't
Yeah,
know.
and you're right, and it's tough to make that decision right now. So, I mean, I would
So you're
just to
saying
be...
that I'm the voice of reason right now? 1, 2, 5?
Yeah. It didn't hear that. I mean, and if it is
Let the
5,
minutes reflect that, just so, for
Okay.
posterity.
Do we need a motion for that, or is it the sense of the board, or what? Does somebody want to make that
Whatever you
motion?
want, you're the chairman.
I'll be
Take
happy.
charge.
I'm not making a motion.
Well, I will. I'll make a motion, we go 1, 3, and 5.
1, 2, 5,
One,
alternate cover.
oh, wait a minute
Made,
now.
Maureen?
What about the recycling?
He's at
Yes,
this.
2 has the increased recycling, that's why.
No, you see,
Oh, sorry, 3 has
He
the increased
does.
recycling, I'll go back. 1, 3, 5.
Status quo.
1, 3, 5.
1, 3, 5.
Can I
We
just
don't
ask
feel
one?
alternative
Yes,
cover.
Maureen?
The question I'm going to ask is, if we go with 1, 3, 5, are we taking off the less expensive 1971
Yeah.
capping?
They're not going to define the cover
Yeah, so
system.
that makes,
Right.
I just don't
Right.
want them to say, oh, we're not even going to look at that because they're not
No.
interested.
You-
We are
right.
interested
You
in,
define
5 has the,
what you're willing to live with up there, and
Okay.
then we'll deal with what kind of cover system and where and how. That's a future decision that will point to,
yeah, I would suspect if we
final
told them that we're
decisions.
interested in all those things and they come back and say, well, you got 2 capping alternatives. You've got the
Yeah.
1971 capping and you've got the current standard capping. Both are equally
well, I think what we're looking for from the engineers to get from DEP is, if you want to maintain the status quo with the existing recycling, composting operation, this is what we'll require you to do at the site. If you want to expand to include these, we're going to require you to do this at the site. If you want to do an athletic field, we're going to require you to do this at the site. So I don't want to define what what they're going to require us to do. We just want to tell them what the post-closure uses that you can live with or feel would be an asset.
Then I am good.
Fine.
1,
So
3,
for me,
5.
though, it's 1, 2, 3, right, and then 5.
1,
I think it's
3,
what you're saying,
5.
Maureen, is that we're not giving up on the alternative
Right.
cover system.
But again, we're not defining,
I know, we're not
Right.
defining, but we're
We're just
highlighting
defining
our
the uses.
requirements that I don't want to get in a situation where somehow it gets communicated, no action, and then we immediately go to standard cover system without looking at alternative cover.
I think that's why you want.
Is that right, Rick?
We understand that, right?
Yes, I mean, again, this is the beginning of a long, apparently painful process, where, if you, again, I really want to get away from the issue of defining what cover system. You know, if you would want to see, for instance, expanded recycling, this is what they'll make you do this.
Let's ask that question.
If you,
Let's ask
They
that
haven't
question.
told us they want
Yes.
Does everybody want to see expanded recycling, if it's possible, at the...
I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
So
Okay.
now we've got no action, we have expanded recycling.
No action, meaning existing status quo.
Exactly right. Yes,
And then
that's a better way to put it.
expanded recycling being a 2.
Does everybody want to see exploration of solar field?
That's fine.
Yes,
Well, now it's fine.
exploration.
No, I said it's fine as long as we don't have to bring in impacted soil. And there's no problem, when
That's
he
fine.
says explore it, if we can get a company that's gonna come in and,
So, no, let me finish.
Explore.
Let me finish.
that's exploring.
Yeah, don't solve the problem yet. We don't know we have the problem yet.
So now we've got 3 post-closure uses, right?
What's the
What we
third?
have now, expanding the recycling.
Correct.
And maybe some sort of alternative energy.
Correct, that would be
Correct.
3.
That's,
Quick,
we're all in
lock
agreement
that
on
down,
that?
lock that down.
We're all in agreement on that.
And no playing
Well,
field.
not some type of...
So that's 135.
You got the, stop with the numbers.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that was my
It
before I was in.
doesn't-
I guess we do have to ask this final question.
Uh-oh.
Are folks in favor or not in favor of impacted soils coming into the landfill? Because I think that's going to be something.
I would be willing to explore that,
Okay.
okay, but right
Yeah, I
now,
would
my
need to know
strong inclination is no.
Okay.
And if we're gonna
Willing to
explore it,
explore.
we should invite the neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
We should let them know
Yes.
what the truck traffic is
It's
gonna
a
be.
long process, but is it something
Right.
that you
Okay,
want to
that's
take off
fine.
the table?
As a
Totally?
cost,
Right.
as a cost-saving option, absolutely.
It could be, and again, that an option may require impacted soil, and you're comfortable with the location of that soil, and you're comfortable with the testing requirements. May not be the case, but it may be a possibility, but that's the next step. That's the next step, which we may never get to. We may never get to that.
I think we're done.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it, motion to adjourn?
Approval of April 28th. Thank you, folks, for
Oh, thank,
your input. Thank you. Approval of April 28th, 2014, open session meeting. Minutes. Motion made.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Vote on intermunicipal agreement between the town of Abington and Whitman to create a Veterans Services District.
pass those down, Mr. Chairman. I know you've all had the draft intermunicipal agreement, and that essentially commemorates the requirements of the application that you voted to submit. The way it's set up, and for the public's information, you have it in front of you, is that Abington would be the lead community, and that Whitman would be reimbursing the town for the administrative personnel costs. The benefits would be paid directly by each community. And there is the cost allocation addendum that I just passed out and we emailed to you today was worked out today between the town administrator and the assistant and Dory and I in Whitman today. It's based upon other models, and I think the part that is most important to know about this is that right now it's set up to be divided in half 50%, but in the intermunicipal agreement, it defines a process by which, based every quarter, that amount might shift a little bit based upon the activity from each community. Right now, for instance, Whitman has more clientele under Chapter 1, Chapter 115 than Abington does. So after a 3-month reconciliation, there would be an adjustment that the percentage of the administrative costs would shift for that quarter towards Whitman, because they have more clientele. And in theory, that could shift towards Abington. So it's really, I think, it accommodates the fact that one community's activity doesn't overburden the other, and it becomes an unfair sharing of services administratively. So what you see in front of you is a $97,000 budget for the two communities. And again, you're not approving the budget, but this is just an estimate of what the activity would be for next fiscal year. And it's split in half, but as of right now, that would actually shift a little bit more towards Whitman. And just for some background information, the last full year where we had our full-time agent and staff, the town of Abington spent approximately $47,700. That is, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry, $47,000 and change. It's likely that we would be on the underside of that in approximately $43,000. However, that's money, it's not substantial money. It's refreshing to see that we can stay within our existing budget and projected for next year, but we've said right from the outset, the goal here is not necessarily to save administrative money, it's to try and have a better product. I can speak to that more if you'd like, but I know if there's questions, I'd rather handle those first, because that may...
Are you looking for a vote? It says vote on it. You're not going to vote on the budget, but...
No, but I am looking for you to vote to approve the intermunicipal agreement that you have in front of you. You approved the application, which is, again, essentially incorporated into the agreement now. Whitman is set to vote to approve this, or to consider it, presumably approve this tomorrow night.
Okay.
Rick, I thought you started off by saying that Abington would be the host community?
The lead community, yes.
What does that mean?
It means we would be essentially doing the processing. The employees would be the employees of Abington, and Whitman would be reimbursing us for the equivalent share that they use of the operation. So, because somebody has to be the lead community. We're not setting up a whole separate administrative structure as a whole separate, government. One of the communities has to be the administrative agency, and that would be Abington.
Does that have any impact on the presentation we had a couple of meetings ago with Mr. Farmer and pension costs being the lead community? I know right now it's shared, but...
Right.
After, what's this, good till June 30th, 2015, at that point, we decide to go our separate way, what does that mean?
Well, it would mean nothing in that, from a pension standpoint, because we wouldn't have anybody who would be eligible for a pension at that stage of the game. But under the conditions of the intermunicipal agreement, future pension costs or unemployment costs would also be shared by the communities appropriately. So it's a good point, though. It's if, let's say this is successful and in 20 years we have a veterans agent who retires, there will be an assessment to Abington by the Plymouth County Retirement System, if it's still in business. It better be, I'm just kidding. So if there will be an assessment, which is clearly defined, that this isn't, by the county, Whitman would be paying its share of those retirement costs. So also if there's a layoff, if there's unemployment costs, those would be shared by Whitman. So it is meant to be inclusive. Those are not costs we would have at this time, though, obviously, because of it's a new district, so.
Maureen, you had something?
No, I was actually just thinking the same thing, if there were a layoff or if there was some other situation. So it would,
Right.
I'm thinking similar to like what we do with Abington Rockland Waterworks and their pension type of thing, where you share,
Yes.
we get assessed a full amount, but it's shared equally, or.
Correct, right. And that's an amount that's easily definable by the county, the pension system. It's not guesswork. That can be attributable to each community appropriately without a debate.
I think the other point, I don't know if Maureen brought it up with Dory earlier, but the total budget for Abington is going to be around $100,000 is the proposed. But I think the point in there is that we're increasing the services to available for veterans as opposed to having that eaten up with salaries.
Yeah, one of the key points here is that between the full-time agent and a part-time agent, and I've done this before, I've equated it with, say, the town of Rockland, because you'd have about the same clientele in Abington and Whitman as Rockland has, and they have one full-time employee. We would basically have a full-time and a part-time, totaling about 54 hours available in both communities at any time. It would be more than full-time coverage for any veteran of either Abington or Whitman. Whitman has night hours, for example, so if an Abington veteran would have access to night hours in Whitman. We have Friday hours, Whitman's closed on Friday, so a Whitman veteran would have access to office hours in Abington on Fridays that they don't have currently. So it really provides I think, better coverage for both communities, and it's not an overwhelming burden of clientele if you look at other communities. And again, I don't want to keep, looking at Rockland, but it's a close example, and I think it's relevant to what we're trying to accomplish here. The goal would be to get our advertisement out for our Veterans Services, the Director, as early as possible, within the next week or two. Probably get the part-time position advertised too, but we would like to get the Director on board to assist, to help define who that individual should be, and then follow up with the clerical piece and fill that piece around the strengths and weaknesses of the other individuals you'd have on board, so.
Andy, how many hours is the clerical?
We have it conceptually at approximately 12 hours a week, but it may not be necessary. That's why it's important, as I said, to define the skill set of the other two individuals to find out exactly what kind of clerical administrative support you need to add to that.
I just had a couple typos in here.
Can I blame the Whitman Town Administrator? I don't think I can, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
All right,
Whatever you
page
do.
one, now therefore, consideration of that should be promises, I presume, not premises.
Oh, yes. Yes, let me find my... You're acting rather loyally, I will have to say. Okay.
Page 2, number 7.
Okay.
All employees of the district will be members of the Plymouth County.
Got it.
I got that one.
Would that be retirement system? Or?
Yes, Plymouth County Retirement System. Gotcha.
And then that next sentence, it should be having apostrophe S, I think, after Whitman. That's all.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement. Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
I have one question on that.
Yes.
Just quickly, so people on TV know, the town is reimbursed for most of the veterans' aid.
Right.
Percentage, right? Is it
75% of the veterans' benefits, not salaries, but just the Chapter 115 benefits.
benefits that the
Right.
veterans receive from
Correct.
the state?
Correct. Right, through the state benefits through the town, so the town has the 100% cash flow issue, 75% of that is reimbursed, usually not until the next fiscal year, so, but it is reimbursed at 75% eventually, correct.
Now, do we budget for that?
We budget 100%, and the 75% eventually comes back on the cherry sheet. So it's essentially used as a bottom line revenue estimate for the following fiscal year.
So when you budget an amount, you kind of have to take a guess as to what services are
Well,
going to be.
Not really, because you're not actually seeing the reimbursement till the following fiscal year. So it's a cash flow issue that there's no solution to. In fact, I think when I was relatively new, the Finance Committee and I had looked at and contemplated and did a little homework on whether or not you could set up a revolving fund, and we were instructed that whether or not a community may have done it, it doesn't mean it's allowed under Mass General laws, because it's actually a cherry sheet revenue. It doesn't come in as a separate revenue. It's listed on the cherry sheet every year, and you can't divert, except in very specific offset receipts that are listed on the cherry sheet. You cannot divert cherry sheet aid for a specific purpose. It's just general aid, so.
Just a question I've been asked before. Discussion on goals and objectives. I have placed this on the agenda just usually by the beginning of the fiscal year, and as the board changes over, we want to try to discuss what the board members' goals and objectives are. In the past, what we've done is, I think last year and the year before, we met with individually the town manager, Rick LaFawn, and went over what your personal goals and objectives were, and then Rick would meet with everybody, and then come to the board, what we thought was the general consensus of the board. And I just want to know if we wanted to hear that past practice. Is that agreeable to everyone?
Yeah.
So if you want to schedule a meeting with Rick, and maybe by, the beginning of the fiscal year, we can have it, put that on the agenda, what the board's goals and objectives are. In tune with that, could you just send maybe last year's past goals and objectives? I know we received it back.
I will do that with a status update on those. That might be helpful.
Thank you very
For
much.
the discussion.
Discussion on a special meeting to discuss warrant articles in FY 2015 budget. I know we do not have a meeting until our town meeting on June 9th, so I wanted to see if the board was willing to meet and possibly, I don't even think I've seen a completed warrant or a budget yet, so it's kind of unfair to us to be expected that night to discuss all this stuff, so I'd like to try to have at least one meeting if that's agreeable, and even if we want to discuss having a meeting with the Finance Committee, we can do that. I know in the past we've done that. I don't think it was last year, but maybe 2 years ago we did that. So, feeling of the board on any of these?
Yeah, I think we should within the next week, frankly.
All right,
You ready in a week?
Yeah, I know the Finance Committee is scheduled for this Wednesday and Thursday, and I think the same for next week. I spoke to the chairman of the Finance Committee yesterday, and he and I believe that the Finance Committee would likely be able to conclude their votes, and of course, the budget being the largest issue, this week. So it might be appropriate to target maybe next Wednesday or Thursday for that meeting, and in light of the, I know the chairman and I spoke before the meeting about the executive session tonight. It would be a good idea to piggyback that discussion rather than do it tonight if you could, the board can meet a little bit earlier. The Finance Committee meets at 7, so I didn't know if you might want to meet a little bit earlier, and we could have our executive sessions, get those out of the way, and then piggyback that with a Finance Committee discussion.
It'll be up to this board if you want to meet the same night at the Finance Committee, or actually meet with them, or meet separately,
Yeah.
or meet separately first, and then meet, it's up to you folks what you want to do.
I'm probably meet separately, but I guess the things that, in addition to the budget, I think there's a couple of articles on there that I get pinged on. One is the CPA, and the other one is the DPW, that I'd like to get a little bit more time, face time, to kind of find out and let the public know what those are about.
Possibly we can meet, if they're meeting both.
It's up to you.
Maybe we can meet both nights. I don't mean to put the burden on the board, but maybe we
Yeah,
can meet Wednesday night by ourselves, and then maybe have a joint meeting
I
with
think
the
that'd be
Finance
excellent,
Committee on
Kenny.
Thursday night, if it's agreeable to them. Would that, something like that work, you think?
Good for me.
Are they meeting Wednesday and Thursday, you said?
They're posted for those dates,
Well, Wednesday is that Common Core Forum, if anybody's interested in going to that,
Yeah, I
which
think-
I was.
We're talking, obviously, a week out. We're talking about next week.
Right, the
obviously.
21st.
Right, yeah.
Could we do it the 20th? If that's in,
Which one with me?
What day of the week is that?
That's a Tuesday.
that's a Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 20th? Does that work for everybody?
Oh, it's May.
Right?
I don't know from one day to the other, to be honest with you, but I'll try.
I can't do the 20th. I'm sorry. I have a school issue of my own.
How about Monday, the 19th?
I'm told it's Victoria Day, but I think I could overlook that. Just what it says.
Well,
So what-
actually,
what
I
are you
can't-
saying
I
we're
can't
gonna
do it Monday,
have-
Tuesday, sorry. Going away.
It's what?
Going away.
I can't do it the 22nd, so.
For Wednesday?
Anybody up for meeting?
You're talking about
Would-
just having a selectmen's meeting to go over the budget, is that what you're talking about?
But not with the Finance Committee, or with
Well, we
them
could do it with the Finance Committee. I mean, how,
Not
we have.
initially, though.
No, I agree with that. I think we should,
separate?
yeah, iron out our own
Yeah.
questions.
But
How about the latter part of this week?
Well, do you want to know what the Finance
Monday.
Committee's recommendations are first? Because they're not going to have those wrapped up till Thursday at least. I don't know if you want it, if you
They'll
care.
have it this Thursday, though, right?
They're meeting Wednesday and Thursday, so they may likely have gone through all the warrant articles and everything. They may not have their recommendations written up, but you'll have.
Well, that's
probably
good to have
a good
those when we do meet, whatever they've got voted on.
In this discussion.
How about the 27th,
When's that?
Tuesday?
Next Tuesday?
Oh, 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from
That's right after Memorial Day, right?
Yep. And the finance committee will have done all their work.
That
Done all
sounds
our
good
work?
to me.
Works for
All
me.
their work.
That works for me.
What day is it, Tuesday, the 22nd?
Tuesday.
It's after the Monday holiday.
You, Rick?
Tuesday, the
That works,
27th?
that works fine, yep.
Then we'll have whatever the finance committee's recommendations would be, that would be helpful.
Yes.
That'd be good.
So at that point, we would have presumably an executive session and go over the warrant. Okay, do it all at that time.
You want to start it early? You want at 6 o'clock, all right? Is this all right for you, Mike? 6?
Usually, yeah, that's
Okay.
Okay.
And would it be helpful to start with the executive session at 6?
Yeah,
Would that be the,
absolutely.
okay, the intent? Very good.
All right, excellent, thank you. That should work out good. And we'll get a budget soon?
You will have it emailed to you tonight.
All right, thank you. Oh, you don't have to stay
Oh,
up
I'm sorry,
late.
or hard copy, whatever you, we'll email it to you.
All right, town manager report.
One, we'll have a budget to you tonight. Number, well, I did, I'm sorry, you caught me a little off guard, Mr. Chairman. Give me a moment to collect my
Next on the
thoughts.
agenda, I can skip it to public comment. You're not, you're up now.
Okay. Well, the only, I'll just mention a couple things quickly. As you know, this is the wrong update. Wednesday, the South Shore Tri-Town meeting is a meeting organized by the Tri-Town Authority to try and see if there's any sense of compromise on some of the various proposals. I will be going, and I know that the chairman has also put out the word to any of the members of the board that might be able to make that too. So I know it's a difficult time, I know, for of the day, but we had a kickoff meeting this week with the contract, if the successful low bidder on the Memorial Arch project. And just over the next month or so, there's a number of permitting issues that have to be dealt with conservation, nothing major. Essentially, they have to produce a number of different methods that they would propose and get feedback from the Conservation Commission as what they would require under each one of those methods, so there can be a compromise on how to approach this. So then, at sometime during the next month, we should have a reasonable schedule of that, how that project's going to be, how it's going to proceed in terms of time frame. So, in the meantime, in the next couple of weeks, the second part of that, and by far the much lesser component, is the updating of the bronze work. So, I'm sorry. Yes. Because that will be done by a separate contractor. So we'll keep you informed of that schedule. So we had also had a really good kickoff meeting this week on actually one of the board's goals in terms of the look, feel, aesthetics of our business and commercial zones. And I think it's safe to say it wasn't necessarily the meeting we had expected, but I think it was very productive, and Mr. Burbine was able to join us for that meeting. And one of the issues that was raised by a number of the business people that were in the room, and I think we had about a dozen, was kind of the connections between the issues of signs and some of the problems they deal with in terms of parking and traffic flow. And so it's kind of interesting how when you ask the question, people actually have some pretty good ideas, and that weren't necessarily on the forefront of, they see the problem differently, and so it was kind of interesting to hear some of their ideas. Our peer consultant is going to be providing us with an update, or we'll say a wrap-up minutes of that meeting, and some suggestions, and we'll distribute that widely when that comes in. But it was, again, another kickoff, so to speak, event, and it wasn't exactly everything we anticipated, but I think it was really healthy. One of the particular issues that came up was that, as was told to us by the local businessmen, is there really isn't the ongoing forum for the Abington business community that maybe we thought still was active, so there may be some opportunity there for the town to help fill a role that has not been filled in the last several years. But I think it was the Abington Business, there was a title.
How
Business Council. And of course, the Chambers of Commerce are regional, so they don't necessarily focus on a particular community. So, so some of these issues that they we might have with signage and maintenance, some of the business people put that into the context of traffic and parking and some of the other challenges they face. So it was actually rather interesting. So that's another issue that's going to be moving forward and be more of a long-term project. So I'll leave it alone at that for now. So, but any questions?
We're canceling executive session for tonight, correct?
Right, and you've already essentially checked your schedule, so when you adjourn, you don't have to talk to me anymore tonight. So,
Anybody else have anything else they want to add? No public comment. Nothing? Canning something.
Make a motion.
Motion to adjourn, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, thank you.